Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and it seems appropriate that since the wine cup has been passed to Shi Qingxuan, Wine Chan needs to join me tonight. This is the last of a bottle of wine that I've had sitting in my refrigerator since Christmas, and I have been sick the last couple of weeks, so I haven't drank anything at all. This is legitimately like the first drink I've had since getting better, and I'm drinking this tonight while reading about Shi Qingxuan and possible things happening to him. It seems appropriate, right? But oh, that tastes so good. Blackberry honey wine seems appropriate because we are on chapters 91 and 92 of Heaven Official's Blessing. I really debated. I could have done 93 and 94. This chapters is roughly around 20 pages, but I'm going to feel it out. I have a feeling because it took me nearly 2 hours to get through 30 pages last week that it's probably going to take me about the same time to get through these pages. I just have a gut feeling there's going to be a lot going on because there was a lot going on in the last two chapters. So I decided I'd just read the two chapters, feel it out. If they fly by and not that much happens, then I may read 93 and 94. We'll just see. We'll see. But I'm going to, for right now, stick with 91 and 92 and just go with that. If I feel like I've got a lot to talk about, then we'll stick with those. I am, if anything, a patient woman. It's fine. We're on volume 3. We've been on volume 3 for, I think we started in part 19 and we're on part 27. So we've been there a good several weeks. But if you'll notice, we're past the halfway mark. We're getting down towards the bottom. We're slowly but surely getting there. I got a confirmation email today that volume 7 that I had pre-ordered was delayed until September of this year. But I was like, at first I was like, oh no, September. And then I was like, wait a minute, Romania. We still got 4, 5, and 6 to get through. We're good. If we get through those by September, we'll be great. I was like, yeah, but it's so worth it because not only is there so much happening in each of these chapters, but I'm loving this story. The only thing that I've talked to people on Discord about, the only thing I'm sad about is that I can't look up any fan fiction or anything like that because I'm not through the story. But just you wait. Once I am, the floodgates will open. But you know what? The good sign of a good romance is when you don't have to look up fan fiction. Like, I was so excited when I got, I think it's volume 4 of, I've moved some of my Don Mai. I've got a bookshelf over there now. I'll have to put some pictures on Discord. But I've got a bookshelf over there now I got for Christmas. And Heaven Officials, or Modao Zushi and Scum Villain are over there on that bookshelf. And getting volume 4 of Modao Zushi, I was so excited. I've not honestly looked up a lot of fan fiction for Modao Zushi because the original story is good enough. And that's when you know it's a good story, when you don't need the fan fiction. I'm like, whoo! So we got these 2 chapters tonight. I do have some comments I want to talk about before we begin. I was thinking about this too, and I didn't get a chance to comment on this like I wanted to, but the idea that love and hatred in stories are needed, and if not, they're even better. I was thinking about this. I wanted to bring it up because we had this comment. Diana Z, she's a reactor on YouTube. Her and I did like a live stream a few weeks ago on Instagram. We did a live stream and we kind of did like a 20 questions game where we asked each other questions back and forth. And one of Diana Z's questions was, do you prefer canon couples or non-canon couples? And I was like, well, you like canon couples when they're the couples you like. Whenever they turn out to be canon, it's great. But then there's something fun about non-canon couples because then you can kind of, it's not proven wrong, but it's not proven right. So you're kind of like in a Schrodinger's situation. So I like that this book is basically establishing that, you know, love and hatred as stories are needed. Even if they're not there, you just make it up yourself. So it's kind of like whenever you have a story that has no romance in it, you just create a ship yourself. I do that all the time. Have you watched my Vinland Saga reactions? So yeah, I like that. I agree with that. Oftentimes we do inject romance into stories when they're needed, even if they're not present there to begin with. Fun times. Keon Fong said that Arc 2, I love this description of Arc 2. Arc 2 is like a party that divulges into drunk madness. Yeah, it's like y'all show up at the party, everybody's on their float having a good time, and by the end of the party, there's like faces growing out of people, somebody's puking their guts up in the corner. It's just a bad scene, man. I thought that was a great description. And the crazy thing is that this whole flashback was just on like a year's worth of time for Shi Qingxuan. We still got like 800 to go. Now, I think we're going to obviously time skip several parts of that story, but there's still so much of Shi Lian's past we don't know that we need to divulge into. So we'll see. Molly MIGH said that it's so creepy that the human face disease is not deadly. It's just maddening. Like, you don't die from it, you just go crazy, right? Because there's literally like someone's spirit attached and festering inside of you. Ugh. But not only that, Molly MIGH said that Hua Cheng, the thing that separates him from other devotees is that Hua Cheng loves Shi Lian and expects nothing in return. Like, he does love Shi Lian and asks him and helps him and expects nothing to be given back to him. Whereas other devotees like want something in return. Hua Cheng's not like that. And I absolutely love it, right? SQQLBH314 says that Guzi means millet and is likely a nickname or a first name, not a surname. So that's good to know. And also, I totally forgot about this, but the whole thing about Pei Ming, if Pei Ming and Ling Wen had something, or, you know, irony of all ironies, Pei Ming fell for Ling Wen and she was like, no. And like, the irony is, and I love that SQQ pointed this out, that it goes back to Shanji cursing Pei Ming back in volume 1, saying that he'll never find love and his organs will turn to dust. I'm like, that would be cool if the one person he fell for, this womanizer, didn't love him back. Shot through the heart, and Pei Ming's to blame. So I like that comment there too. And then also, Anime Annie pointed out a couple things. One, I thought it was kind of humorous, the whole being fed by a child thing with Qirong, Guzi stuck in the Poochie shrine feeding him. But Anime Annie pointed out something very good. Have you ever been fed by a child? I have, like Anime Annie. I've been fed by a child once. It's not good. They're like missing your mouth, shoving stuff up your nose, like getting it all over you. So the fact that this kid has to force feed Qirong, who seems like he is pretty well to do and like has a certain manner about him, that's hilarious. And that may be more of a punishment than we think. So I'm like, fun times. But Anime Annie also points out that the chopsticks being thrown by Shi Lian at the curtains are kind of like when San Long threw the chopstick at the puppet back before the Banyu arc. And I'm like, you are correct. And then finally, Qi Ying. I may call him Qi Ying, even though Shan Zhizhen, I like that, but the Zhizhen, I always get so on those names. So I may just call him Qi Ying for now. I was like, man, it's kind of weird that his followers, he wants to beat them up. And Anime Annie's like, well, some people have kinks. It's like a BDSM, like, devotee. Like, this Qi Ying comes out in all leather and is like, let's do this. And everybody's like, yes, sir. And so that's where we go to. Maybe he's very mysterious and I want to know more about him. So yeah, chapters 91 and 92. Thank you all for the comments, and those were great. But a part of me is like, maybe Shi Lian can just pass the glass off really quickly and it won't stop on him. But I'm like, we've already seen a horrible several chapter length past of him that was terrible. Why would we want to see a play of it? Although we've established the plays have all been somewhat wrong about the Heavenly Officials. So maybe Shi Lian's will be more farcical. Maybe it'll be funny. Maybe it won't be devastating. All right, I'm excited, y'all. I hope you all are too. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into chapters 91 and 92 of Heaven Official's Blessing. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Chapter 91, Temple of 1,000 Lights, endlessly illuminating the lingering night. Go, much more elegant chapter than I thought we'd get. Yeah, Shi Lian not thinking anybody would pass the wine cup to him. But he reacted fast and took it without thinking. The moment he did, he froze. No, on the ground. When he looked to see who had passed him the cup, it was Ming Yi. Oh, it turns out the cup had made its way into the Windmaster's hands, and they thought it'd be funny and purposely passed it to Ming Yi. But Ming Yi was stuffing his face and drinking his wine, so he didn't even bother to look up, and before he was passed the cup on randomly. Only after the cup was passed did he realize what had happened and became speechless. Right at the same time, the thunder stopped rumbling, leaving the two staring blankly. Oh, so Ming Yi did not want the cup because he was like, I don't want to play about myself. No. Oh, and just didn't realize he was just like, oh, never mind, and passed it without thinking to Shi Lian. Interesting. Which, if he's being, if he's been, questioned by Hua Cheng, maybe he's worried Hua Cheng will be mad that Ming Yi passed the cup to Shi Lian. Although the one who received the cup was Shi Lian, everyone's eyes moved to Feng Shen and Mu Qing instead. It wasn't hard to understand why. Shi Lian had not been heard of for 800 years. If this was 800 years ago, there'd be plenty of plays depicting his heroism, but they were long lost to time. Besides, no one would pick such a day to set up a stage, especially just put on a play for him. Oh, so nobody's even around to do a play for him. Oh. Thus, if they had to find something with the character the Crown Prince of Shanli in it, they'd have to be plays with Feng Shen or Mu Qing as the protagonist. Oh, okay. This was because in the plays written for the two heavenly officials in the mortal realm, there were times that they'd bring out Shi Lian, usually as a foil or a minor character, or for the sake of making the play more exciting. Some would write Shi Lian as the villain, arranging plots for how lonely and abandoned Mu Qing would be bullied, or how Shi Lian would rob Feng Shen of his beloved, and so on. Of his beloved? When did that happen? If such plays were really performed at the Mid-Autumn Banquet, it wouldn't matter if the characters would be pleased. The rest of the audience would definitely enjoy it. Shi Lian held the small jaded cup in his hands, and some heavenly officials were already urging him. Your Highness, come, down the cup. Oh, and Feng Shen spoke up. His Highness can't drink. Oh, just one cup. It won't do anything. Junwu, I'm like, where's Junwu in all this? Had been sitting with his hand supporting a temple without a word, but now he too slowly straightened as if to speak. Besides Shi Lian, the Windmaster was also asking, well, can you do it or not? If not, then whatever, I'll help you throw the 100,000 merits to drop the curtains. Shi Lian was afraid she really would just throw out 100 merits impulsively. No matter how generous she was, that wasn't the way to do it. Besides, he'd seen pretty much every play there was anyway. And there wasn't anything worth paying attention to. So he hastily replied, No, a cup shouldn't be a problem. And he emptied the cup. Fine brew entered his throat, and the area the liquid slid past was at first cool and then hot, and Shi Lian was feeling a little dizzy, but the taste of that refined drink pushed that dizziness down in an instant. The curtains all around the small pavilion slowly lifted, and the crowd moved their gaze, ready to focus on the play. They were amazed by what they saw. Two figures stood on the stage. One was in white, a face covered in foundation, looking windswept and dusty, a bamboo hat on his back. No doubt he must be Shi Lian. The other was in red robes. Hair black like raven. Handsome and brilliant, his eyes bright and lively. Oh, the snake! The snake wrapped around his arm was stripped away by Shi Lian. Instantly, the red-robed man snatched the snake back, ditched it aside, and then held Shi Lian's hand without any intent of letting it go. Watching the scene play out, it was like a knife violently stabbed his heart. That scene astonished all the heavenly officials, waiting to watch a good show, and of course, Shi Lian himself too was astonished. Then Junwu, who was seated at the head, chuckled. What play is this? It seems it's never been seen before. Ling Wen immediately sent someone to investigate and replied, It seems this play is called The Adventures in the Kingdom of Banyu. It's newly written, so it's never been shown before. Tonight is the first time it's been performed in the mortal realm. Oh my god! The Windmaster turned to Shi Lian. It's probably written by those merchants after they returned from the Kingdom of Banyu last time. The merits are saved, so there won't be any need to pull the curtains. Shi Lian didn't comment. For mortals to know about the affairs of the Kingdom of Banyu, the source could only come from those merchants. He recalled that there was a boy named Tian Shang in the caravan who did indeed say something along the lines of worshipping him as thanks, so perhaps this play was commissioned by him. However, he didn't tell Tian Shang his name, and a young boy shouldn't have the ability to do something like this. So I wonder if Hua Cheng is spreading the word for him. I wonder, or... On the other side of the stage, although the heavenly officials didn't see the play they expected, the performance before them was even more exciting. After all, if the rumors were true, then the red-robed man played was none other than Hua Cheng. There were plenty of plays about the crimson rain flower in the mortal realm. However, it was usually something like, the red demon burnt the temples of 33 gods, and not even the heavens could do shit! Oh, crimson rain flower hung the martial and civil gods and slapped them around with but one hand! And so on. The kind of stories that would make those in the heavens cry silent tears, not wanting to find out just how those plays ended. In any case, the protagonist this time was Shi Lian. And for everyone, It never felt like he blended in to be counted as one of us, so just watching the play did no harm. Besides, the stage of the play was intricate, the production exquisite, the actors extremely well made up, truly a great work of benevolence. Thus, there were many who inwardly enjoyed the show, commenting as they watched, "Is this true? It must be made up. Hua Cheng would never talk like that to anyone. Nonsense, pure nonsense. Who do they take Hua Cheng for in this play? Wake up, this isn't a romantic play. Goodness, how daring!" This was a play written especially for him, after all. So Shi Lian watched it attentively. If you must say so earnestly, it wasn't a bad play. The actors looked good, the story was good. Just, as one of the scenes portrayed, he had a very, very small criticism. The two protagonists seemed overly close. The one who played him was a really good actor, but every time he opened his mouth to call Sun Long, while the tone wasn't up and down and full of yearning, Shi Lian thought it was even more unsettling than when Lady Windmaster called Lady Watermaster hubby earlier. Although there seemed to be too many little gestures, hooking arms, hugging shoulders, carrying him. Somehow there was something that was not right. However, if he really thought about it, when he called Sun Long, that was indeed the way he'd called him. Those intimate gestures really did seem to have been done too. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it all at the time, but watching it now, technically there wasn't anything wrong still. Looking at the other heavenly officials, although they condemned it as nonsense on their lips, they seemed to be fully enjoying the show, watching with their eyes unmoving, their interest enthusiastic, so Shi Lian kept his mouth shut. As they watched, Shi Wudu suddenly spoke up. "Who are those two little squires in the back?" Hearing the word squire, both Feng Shen and Mu Qing inconspicuously froze. "They're not squires," Ling Wen replied. "They should be two junior martial officials from the middle court. They were appointed by the palaces of Nanyang and Shanjin to help His Highness at the time." That the palaces of Nanyang and Shanjin would actually send people to assist Shi Lian was truly extraordinary news, as impossible as Pei Ming courteously rejecting the advances of a rare beauty, and all the heavenly officials turned to look. Ling Wen added, "They went willingly." Shi Lian smiled. "I forgot to ask, how are Nanfang and Fu Yao? How come I didn't see them out to the play today?" "Nanfang is... Fu Yao is in detention. Nanfang is also in detention." "Oh, both of them locked up. What a shame." "What did they do?" "Oh, while they conversed, the curtains dropped on that exhilarating play. Although it was determined by everyone that it was written by an ignorant believer with obscene intentions, watching an obscene Hua Cheng was still fully entertaining, and the crowd applauded and cheered. However, Pei Su was exiled because of what happened at the Banyu Pass, so after the entertainment was over, everyone still had to mind Pei Ming. "How's your little Pei doing, General Pei?" Shi Wudu inquired. Pei Ming poured himself a glass and drank, shaking his head. "How well can he do? His heart isn't in the right place. I don't care anymore." The Windmaster couldn't listen anymore and jeered. "So in General Pei's eyes, where's the right place for his heart? Your little Pei's future is a future, but the little lady's future is nothing?" Her tone was rude, and Shi Wudu's eyes swept over. "Qingxuan, mind your manners." The moment he reprimanded, the Windmaster lowered her head demurely. Seeing this, Pei Ming laughed. "Water, Master Zhang. Your little brother is quite impressive. Only you can keep him in line. Him messing with me really isn't anything, but if in the future he messes with the wrong people, they won't let it go easily for your sake." Xin Wudu opened his fan and continued to lecture his little brother. "Did you hear what General Pei said? Also, how many times do I have to tell you not to walk around outside in that form all the time? What a disgrace. I don't care what appearance you like. You must use your true form when you're out." Although the Windmaster loved her lady form passionately and wouldn't stand for his reprimand, she didn't dare oppose her brother. Shi Lian thought the Windmaster says she's not afraid of her older brother, but that doesn't seem to be entirely true. Yet unexpectedly, Shi Wudu ended the lecture with, "What if you bump into someone strong in both spiritual power and ill intent, like General Pei?" Ling Wen laughed unkindly, and Pei Ming almost spat out his wine again. "Oh, Watermaster Shang, if you keep that up, we won't be pals anymore." After the round of feasting was past, in the midst of all the socializing and networking, came the final act of the night, the Battle of the Lanterns. Within the heavenly court, all the candlelight and lamps were extinguished. Except for the moonlight, all was dim. The banquet sat near the lake, and when the clouds and mists on the surface were waved away, through the clear moving waters in the deep, dark mortal realm could be seen. The Battle of the Lanterns was a competition to see which heavenly official had the most number of blessing lanterns offered from their largest, most renowned temple. One blessing's lantern of everlasting light was hard enough to buy with 1,000 gold. It would not easily be extinguished. The order of the Battle of the Lanterns was formed from the lowest count to the highest, and when it was the officials' turn, the lanterns offered by their worshippers would float to the heavens, brightening the long, dark night beautiful and glorious. The Great Martial Palace had 961 this year, a close count to 1,000, and also a number never reached before in history. All the heavenly officials felt next year the count would surely break 1,000, but that wasn't the point. If first place would always be first place, then first place would lose its meaning. So when it came to the Battle of the Lanterns, the Great Martial Palace was automatically removed from the competition. What was dumbfounding was, the moment the Battle of the Lanterns began, the first one up was the Rainmaster. When Shi Lian saw that one little blessings lantern leisurely and errantly floating up in the sky and heard the Palace of the Rainmaster, one lantern, he almost suspected maybe he did get drunk and hadn't sobered up. There was no way there was only one lantern. To make sure he wasn't drunk, he asked Shi Qingxuan, is that right? It is. It really is just the one. And that one was lit by the bull from the Rainmaster's own house for the sake of showing face at the feast. Oh, okay. I was getting the Rainmaster and Watermaster confused because I was like, surely Shiwudu has more than one lantern, but it's the Rainmaster and it's just the bull there. So maybe the bull is or is not the Rainmaster. Okay. Just you wait. They said it's nearly 1,000. I'm like, Hua Cheng, I'm waiting for there to be a ton of lanterns for Shi Lian and that Hua Cheng's behind it. I'm waiting for it, but I don't know. We'll see. If we're talking about romantic gestures, I don't know. I don't know. They're building it up for something like this, right? Self-offering. What a familiar sentiment. He can relate. Shi Lian pondered the Rainmaster controlled rain, and thus was god of agriculture. Is it because the worshippers of the Rainmaster are mostly farmers, so they don't have the funds for offerings? Your Highness, do you have some kind of misunderstanding of farmers? Ah, good! I'm glad we're bringing this up. Yes, a lot of farmers are wealthy, okay? This is only because the Lord Rainmaster had said it was better to farm than use money for offerings, so the followers always offered fresh fruits and vegetables instead. We were going to talk about this in the discussion. Yeah. Hearing this, Shi Lian was extremely envious. What a marvelous thing, he thought. Yeah, we'll talk about this. However, the Windmaster added, and then later the Lord Rainmaster also said not to waste anything. So usually after a couple of days, the worshippers would take home the offerings and eat it themselves. I think I'm going to like the Rainmaster. I don't know, I'm just getting that vibe. At the beginning of the battle, the numbers were all scattered and sparse, the lights belonging to the lower-ranking officials, the count never reaching over 10, and no one paid it any mind. However, as the battle continued, as the light of the lanterns grew brighter, everyone paid more attention. If it wasn't for the designated heavenly official who announced the count, it'd be impossible to count the lanterns floating up so tightly knit. Shi Lian didn't know at all what was going on, so he didn't comment on anything, only focusing on appreciating the beautiful scene of lanterns brightening the black, long night, while listening to everyone else's analysis of how the battle was going. Although personally, he didn't think there was really anything to analyze. After about 2 instances' time, it was finally time for the grand finale. The fight for the top 10 of the Battle of the Lanterns at the Mid-Autumn Festival had begun. The bottom of the 10, Shi Lian heard the announcer official shouting, "The Palace of Qi Ying, 421 lanterns." Quan Jishin had long since left the feast, so when the officials heard the count, they didn't bother to hide the clicking of their tongues anymore. The martial god of the West was young, but his headwind was strong. To the other officials of around the same years of experience, just 200 blessing lanterns was already plenty, yet he had more doubled than that count. Even Long Qingchu, who ascended earlier, didn't have as many lanterns, so he was definitely someone impressive. However, Shi Lian felt that the young man really wasn't that well received in the heavens, because other than himself and the Windmaster, there's practically no one else who had sincerely been awed by that number. The next one, the Palace of the Earthmaster, 444 lanterns. Other than sipping 2 or more mouthfuls of soup, meaning he didn't express anything else. The Windmaster was more excited than he was, repeatedly claiming it's too few, too few. Oh my god, I can just picture the Windmaster being like, it's too few for him. Because no one else was very close with the Earthmaster, they only clapped politely to congratulate. Soon after, it was Shi Qingxuan herself, the Palace of the Windmaster. I'm number 8? Really? surprised, 523 lanterns. How popular someone was something easily seen. Once the lantern count for the Palace of the Windmaster was announced, Shi Qingxuan hadn't even said anything to the applause in the banquet roared, hollers and cheers of congratulations, as expected, everywhere. Of course, the Windmaster was quite proud, standing up to wave at the crowd and gleefully shouted at Shi Wudo, "Gee, I'm 8th this year!" She was acting like a child begging her parents for rewards after being praised by her teacher, and Shi Lian couldn't help but smile. But Shi Wudo, however, berated, "Only the 8th. What's there to be happy about?" His words were truly wildly arrogant. In the entire heavenly court, there was no one who was a nobody. Yet 500 blessing lanterns, ranking as high as 8th, becoming nothing more than only 8th from his lips. So then the ones who ranked lower than 8th, wouldn't they be even worth less than that? It wasn't like he didn't know what he said was arrogant, but he had to say it anyway because he wasn't afraid. The Windmaster's face dropped. Shi Wudo fanned his fan and added with difficulty, "But there are more lanterns than last year. Next year must be better." Hearing this, what a tsundere. Hearing this, Shi Qingxuan smiled and laughed again. At the banquet, it was only Ming Yi who was stuffing his face without care and not cheering for her. So the Windmaster smacked him twice, asking for some congratulations. Ming Yi ignored her completely and continued to devour the food. Shi Qingxuan was outraged, demanding for him to applaud her, and next to them, Shi Lian was going to suffocate from laughing. This is too wholesome. I needed this after all the chapters prior. The next up, the Palace of Ling Wen, 536 lanterns. Amongst all the civil gods, Ling Wen was considered number 1. However, not too many civil gods congratulated him, and instead it was the martial gods who sent their regards. Shi Lian congratulated him from afar, and on this end, Shi Wudo and Pei Ming demanded he hold a celebratory feast. On the other end, grumbles from the other heavenly officials could be heard, complaining that Ling Wen only had so many worshippers because she used a male form. That Ling Wen kissed the asses of the martial gods, seeing how they were popular at the moment and had no time for other civil gods, and that Ling Wen held more feasts, and there'd be escorts at those feasts, etc., etc. Shi Lian shook his head and had only one thought in mind. It wasn't easy being a woman official. Shi Lian knows what's up. He knows what's up. Screw them. Hashtag feminism. Following Ling Wen were the palaces of Nanyang and Shanzheng. Oh yeah, Shanzheng. Forgot about them. Oh wait, yeah, Nanyang, Shanzheng. Well, that's Fuqing and Muqin. Yeah, you know. Each counted at 572 and 573. One lantern! Muqing looked pleased, while Fengxian didn't appear happy nor angry, seemingly uncaring. Shi Lian was mystified. How did the count come so close? That was too much of a coincidence. He asked the Windmaster in a low voice. It turns out, because the two of them had similar backgrounds, similar might, and territories right next to each other, plus their unfriendly relationship with one another, the worshippers on both sides fought each other to win, vowing that however many lanterns the other offered, they offered one more. They didn't ask to be number 1, only better than the other. And they used their everything, and every year there'd be victory and defeat. This year, at the very last second, the Palace of Shanzhen finally squeezed out one more lantern, winning over the Palace of Nanyang. The worshippers looked like they had won a battle and were crazily celebrating. Hearing this, Shi Lian couldn't help but think, rather than fighting each other out to the death outside, shouldn't those people go home to celebrate the holiday? It's the Mid-Autumn Festival. Okay, so that's top 5. We're getting closer and Shi Lian's not been called yet. The next one, the Palace of Mingguang, 580 lanterns. So number 4, right? This number was quite impressive, yet Pei Ming didn't look pleased because compared to the year before, the number of blessing lanterns of the Palace of Mingguan received was actually less. It was a shock to have something happen to the Deputy General Pei Su, and this year they lost close to 100 lanterns. If it wasn't for Pei Ming's strong foundation, he might have just jumped or lost more. Neither Shi Wudo nor Ling Wen congratulated him, only patting his shoulders. The Mid-Autumn Festival, like Lunar New Year, is a time for family reunions. Shi Lian was amazed that Muqing and Fengxian's followers would rather fight over offering lanterns than go home and be a family. Well, if that's not telling, so we're at the top 3. Oh. Can't imagine, right? Can't imagine. Up until now, Shi Lian discovered the count for the blessings lanterns of those heavenly officials were all very close together, only 10s and 20s apart, no one really standing out. which meant everyone was pretty much the same and no one was really winning. He was just thinking this when the announcer shouted, "The palace of the Watermaster, 718 lanterns." The banquet was in uproar. The sound of amazement was everywhere. "Ah, the water tyrant." Yes. Once the heavenly officials all came to, they fought each other to send forth their congratulations. Shi Wudu only sat there and didn't rise, not looking like he was particularly impressed, and that this was all perfectly natural. This was probably the second heavenly official who had come close to the count of the Great Martial Palace in the past several centuries. The first time Shi Lian ascended was too far in the past, and blessing lanterns back then were even harder to come by, so it couldn't be compared. Gotta adjust for inflation, basically, right? However, they say man dies for wealth, birds die for food. The people's passion and love for money would never decrease as expected of the god of wealth. Oh yeah, so he's the water master, but he's the god of wealth. Shi Qingxuan was even more excited than if she would receive her own 700 lanterns and applauded with force, shouting to Shi Lian, "It's my brother! It's my brother! I love Shi Lian! I know it's your brother!" That is so freaking cute. I love that. At the banquet, it was still only Ming Yi who was working hard at eating all by his lonesome. I just imagine Ming Yi's at the buffet table, like everybody's like cheering and standing in front looking at the scoreboard, and Ming Yi's back like getting the croissants and putting them in his purse, just being like, "I gotta take these home." You know, truthfully, Shi Lian thought out of everyone present, only he took the feast literally and seriously, attending specifically to the food part, as if having played the part of a spy at the ghost city had starved him, and he was working to refill his stomach to the brim tonight. When Shi Lian thought back to the street food sold at the ghost city at the stalls, he could understand wholeheartedly. He couldn't help but wonder, would Hua Cheng ever stroll through the ghost city streets every now and then? Oh my God, you're bringing Hua Cheng up now when we're at the top two. Just stop, okay? Oh my God, the most thrilling mystery had now been revealed. And tonight, each heavenly official had watched plays to their heart's content, socialized, and were now satisfied. They rose to their feet, ready to take their leave. Unexpectedly, Shi Wudu suddenly frowned and snapped his fan shut and spoke, "Wait." If anyone else were to say wait, they probably wouldn't have been as effective. However, someone like Shi Wudu, known as the water tyrant, was known that way for a reason. Like he was born to give command. The moment he opened his mouth, others couldn't help but obey. Everyone sat back down in their seats, confused. "The top 10 are out. Does the Lord Watermaster have anything else to add?" Was he going to give out merits, Shi Lian wondered? The top 10 are out. Shi Wudu fanned his fan. No one knew what that meant, only Shi Qingxuan, who suddenly cried out, No! The top 10 are not all out. Even if we count the Great Martial Palace, only 9 have been announced so far. Only 9? Really, I counted there were only 9. Someone else ranked higher than the Lord Watermaster? Well, who could it be? I don't know anyone like that. Just then a bright light, white as day, exploded in the blackened night. The light was lanterns. Like thousands upon millions of fish swimming through the gorgeous sea, countless lanterns slowly floated up. They shimmered and gleamed in the dark night, radiant and brilliant, like floating souls of a magnificent dream, exceedingly beautiful, brightening the blackened mortal realm. In the face of such a striking sight, none could speak, and all held their breaths, their words broken. Shi Lian watched the sky full of lanterns in dumbfounded awe. It was like breathing had stopped and nothing could be heard, and he remained dazed for a good while. It was only after some time he realized something wrong. The eyes of every heavenly official at the banquet were on him. Turns out that announcer had raised his trembling hand and pointed at him. "What is it?" "Me." "Yes, you." Shi Lian was still in shock. "Me? What about me?" That announcer swallowed a couple times with difficulty and finally spoke again. Thus the hundreds of heavenly officials present heard a voice trembling with disbelief. "Qiandang Temple, the palace of the Crown Prince. 3,000 lanterns." Oh my God! It's more than the Heavenly Palace. It's the Qiandang Palace, 1,000 lights. It's like 3 times as many as Junwood. Oh, you can't tell me Hua Cheng's not behind it. Oh, I'll give my man lanterns. Bitches love lanterns. Ah! We're not stopping. We're going to the next chapter. Oh, cheers. Are you freaking kidding me? Chapter 92, Temple of 1,000 Lights, endlessly illuminating the lingering night, too. 3,000 lanterns. All was silent when suddenly there was a tidal wave of uproar. Never, not even the great martial palace that had always sat at the head, solid as the mountains, had anyone won 3,000 lanterns in one night at the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. In fact, no one had ever imagined such a number. Even just 1,000 was already difficult to pass. 3,000, truly unheard of. Not a precedent in history. And it was even more than the count of all the top 10 heavenly officials added together. One can imagine at that moment just how incredulous every official was. And some blurted out, well, that must be a mistake. That must have been counted wrong. Yet never mind, thinking that the announcer official who had been counting for the Mid-Autumn Festival's battle for the lanterns for years could just happen to be wrong at this one time, just by looking at the massive band of flowing lights. Even if they were to backtrack 1,000,000 steps, that number count couldn't be wrong. Even if it was wrong, the miscount could only be less, not more. Well, could it be those lanterns aren't real blessing lanterns? Maybe they're just ordinary lanterns. Basically, it meant they're frauds. And there were few that agreed. However, the Windmaster spoke up. How can they be ordinary lanterns? Ordinary lanterns and blessing lanterns have completely different marks, completely different makes. And they can't fly up to the heavens, so how can they be fake? If it was Shi Qingxuan who argued, then the rest would probably continue to doubt. Yet because it was the Windmaster who spoke up, and Shi Wudu was also present, no one dared say much else. They changed track. Well, everyone, where is this Qiandong temple? When was it built? Who built it? Does any heavenly colleague know? No, but Qiandong temple was clearly written on the lanterns that floated up. But I've never heard of any Qiandong temple. Me neither. Oh my God, 1,000 Lights. If it's that little shack that Shi Qingxuan first talked to Hua Cheng at, I'm gonna lose my gravy. Me neither. Shi Qingxuan finally snapped out of his shocked reverie. And when he heard the complaints, he said quite earnestly, everyone, truth be told, not only have you all never heard of it, I haven't heard of it either. There was no way this came about naturally. All the officials lost their minds, destroyed by this unexpected thunder, incredulous and disbelieving, and their tongues spitting with talk. Shi Qingxuan wanted to tell them, it's only a game. Why is everyone taking it so seriously? But the first few took this game as a game. Very few took this game as a game. And second, he ranked first place in this game. So if he said anything, he'd be asking for it. The other heavenly officials couldn't say it either because they didn't place first. So if they said anything, they'd be downplaying their not getting number one, making it sound exceedingly awkward. Just then, Pei Ming chuckled, I did say that Crimson Rain Sought Flower didn't kidnap His Highness out of ill intent, but no one believed me. Now will you all believe me? With this reminder, everyone was enlightened in an instant. If it was really Hua Cheng, then it was impossible for him to simply light up 3,000 blessing lanterns like it was nothing. Was there anything going on between Shi Qingxuan and Hua Cheng? Just what kind of relationship they had was truly a mystery. At the moment, the majority still thought it was more believable to say Hua Cheng did this out of ill intent. There was no reason why Hua Cheng, who had always been unfriendly towards the heavens, would suddenly change his attitude in the face of Shi Qingxuan, yet based on Hua Cheng's inconceivable lawlessness, he could very well become nice towards someone out of the blue without reason. After this Mid-Autumn Festival banquet, one would be hard-pressed to say that Hua Cheng had any ill intent. After all, it was 3,000 blessing lanterns. Even for the Watermaster who controlled wealth, this wasn't something he could just do because he wanted to. Amidst the chaos, suddenly the sound of steady clapping came from the head of the feast. Junwu was clapping slowly and smiled at Shi Qingxuan. Congratulations, Shanla. Shi Qingxuan knew Junwu intended to help take the heat off of him and was grateful, bowing his head. Junwu sighed in awe. You always manage to create miracles. Oh my God! Seeing that exchange, the feast quieted down. After some hesitation, all finally took Junwu's lead and applauded, sending their congratulations. With this, no matter how shocked, all the heavenly gods had to admit that this highness, the crown prince, had always produced phenomena. It was like this back then, and it most certainly was the case now. The Mid-Autumn Festival banquet had ended, and the relentlessly rumbling Thundermaster also packed up. Oh, so the Thundermaster's been there the whole time making the rumbling for the hot potato game. Look at that. The one who cheered the hardest throughout all of it was, of course, the Windmaster. No matter whose ranking rolled out, she would be the first to applaud. Except Pei Ming's. At first, Shi Lian wondered if his stealing the Watermaster's thunder, bumping him from second to third place, would cause his ire, but looking at Shi Wudu, it didn't seem he was displeased. Pei Ming and Ling Wen both congratulated him, and afterwards the three started planning to whose little mountain hot springs they would go for a tuna massage. Oh, look, yeah, they're just like leaving, like, we're off to do the after party, just the three of us, ha ha. The Windmaster asked Gay, Gay, are you all planning to go out? Are you going all out to play again? Ling Wen crossed his arms and chuckled, Lord Windmaster, want to come and play too? No, I've already got plans with people. I hope it's not with anyone unsavory. Is there anyone more unsavory than General Pei? Oh, Ling Wen said that! Oh! Noble Ji, shut up now. Oh, nothing between them, my ass. Nothing between them. Don't believe that for an instant. Nah. Shi Lian waited until the two brothers spoke a few words to each other, then prepared to leave the banquet with the Windmaster. On the way out, they bumped into Mu Qing, who knew if he had been watching Shi Lian, but he didn't look pleased anymore. Feng Shen, however, was the exact opposite. When he rose to his feet to leave the feast, he called out to Shi Lian, Congratulations. Thanks. Long Ying was settled, okay, good, we're getting him, was settled in the palace of the Windmaster at the Heavenly Court. That child looked to be clean and tidy, but still rather shy. When Shi Lian picked him up and descended, he didn't talk much on the road. Oh, okay, so he left. Oh, so he went back home. Okay. Shi Lian first went into town to buy some fresh fruits for him to eat, and didn't go immediately straight back to Puchi village. He first went into a piece of nearby woods. Sure enough, that piece of woods was quite lively. A bare-chested young man was yelling and cussing, hung upside down by a white silk band. Profanities and vulgarities spilled from his mouth, and a little child squatted under him, slapping away mosquitoes. Shi Lian made Long Ying stand outside, and he himself strolled over leisurely. When that young man saw me, raged, Shi Lian, you piece of shit! Effing let me down this instant! I'm gonna die! Wow, hanging upside down just like he did with Bai Wushang, that's a bit cruel. Shi Lian. That's some dark humor. Shi Lian, however, said warmly, It must be years since you last get bitten by mosquitoes. Is it so bad to give you a taste of being alive again? Oh. That young man was indeed Shirong. Shi Lian had expected him to be troublesome. That for sure he'd instigate Guzi to help him cut Ryue. So Shi Lian had already instructed Ryue that should Shirong try to escape, drag him to the woods and take care of him. Okay, good, that explains that. Shirong was using the flesh of another against Shi Lian, and Shi Lian couldn't beat him to a pulp. However, he could still make him suffer some little pains of the flesh. Shi Lian had chopped lumber and scavenged before in this area and suffered getting bitten all the time by mosquitoes. Currently, it seemed Shirong was also bitten all over, looking more miserable than dying, and cussed loudly, Where's your snow-white lotus heart? Why can't you pretend to be a sickeningly sweet good person now? Guzi hugged Shi Lian's leg and wailed, Gege, please let my dad down. He's been hanging for so long. Shi Lian ruffled his hair, and immediately, Shirong yelped as he fell to the ground in a heap. To return to Puchi's shrine, they had to traverse through the maple grove. Oh, the maples. Shi Lian gripped in his hand a bare-chested, cussing young man, and behind him followed two little kids, one crying and the other sobbing, the other sullen and quiet. What a freakish group, Shi Lian thought! Yeah! As they hiked up the hills, he caught the little ones behind him. Watch your step, it's easy to trip here. That was the truth. Sometimes when Shi Lian was late in returning home from town after collecting scraps and walked this path at night, maybe it was because of his luck, but he'd always trip and fall. Hearing this, Shirong immediately cried, Dear God, please make this person fall to his death right now! Shi Lian found that hilarious. You're a ghost. What do you have to do begging to the heavens? Just then, he suddenly felt there was a warm glow faintly emerging from the far distance. The dark, obscure path on the ground seemed to be illuminated, the road brightening. When he looked up, sure enough, it wasn't his imagination. There really was light on the horizon. It was the light from the 3,000 blessing lanterns of everlasting light. The floating lanterns flowed into the night sky, imposing and invigorating. Even the shine of the stars and moons was overcome. Shi Lian watched dazed, and after a moment he sighed out a whisper. Thank you. Shirong didn't know what that was about and snickered, Why the fucking thanks? Other people are just playing around. They're not lit for you. Stop thinking so highly of yourself. Shi Lian grinned, but he didn't say anything and didn't rebuke either. He only said, To have beauty exist in this world is already in itself something to be grateful for. There was beauty in his heart, and he wasn't afraid of any killjoys. Borrowing the light of those lanterns in the distance, he continued forward. Oh my gosh. Hold on. We're going to read 93 and 94. No, I can't stop there. That was only like half an hour. No, I can't stop there. And that was just too good. No, this is going to be a long video. I hope you all are ready. That was long. Chapters 93 and 94, they're only like 15 pages, right? They're only 15, 20 pages. We can do that. We can do this. No, we're not stopping. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going, y'all. We're going to go. Chapter 93. Pregnant with evil. A new wave disturbs peace. Damn it, what have I done? I can't back up now. Nope, too late. We're going to start this new chapter. Oh my God, why'd I do this? Nope. This is what I get for bringing up Wine Shan. Here in 3, 2, 1. All right. It didn't take more than 2 days before Shi Lian came to face a major crisis. There was nothing to eat in the shrine. If he was by himself in a day, he'd only need a couple of steam buns and a plate of picked vegetables. Maybe pick some cucumbers from the fields to munch on, and he'd taken care of himself perfectly. But he has 2 live humans and a half-dead ghost. It didn't take long before they cleaned out of his rations. The children were all right, at least. Shirong, the half-dead ghost, possessing a full-grown man refusing to come out, cussed Shi Lian out on one hand for feeding him shitty food, but ate more than anyone else on the other. Shi Lian really wanted to stuff a blackened pan into his mouth. God, I love it. After making sure the pan wouldn't easily be pulled out, Shi Lian decided to take the 2 little ones out to walk around the market to see if they could collect some junk and then find themselves a good meal. If it was said that Shi Lian's luck was usually bad, then the Shi Lian today had especially bad luck. After walking around town, there was actually not a single scrap to be collected. Finally, he stood at a crowded intersection and made a decision. He would pick up his old line of work. Thus, he settled the 2 kids aside before he stood in the middle of the intersection and called out in a loud, clear voice, "Oh, this is like Banyu. It was like the young kid, like him doing tricks. Dear folks and neighbors, today is the first time this servant has come to this treasured place. I'll perform a few shameful tricks. They're embarrassing, but I hope everyone will cut me some slack and give this poor man a hand, donate a bit to eat, grant some coins for the road." Shi Lian had the air of a saint, the appearance of a cultivator, his sleeves clean and fluttering, his voice clear and sonorous, energetic and invigorating. Many on the streets who were idle soon came and surrounded him. "What can you do? Show us something neat." "How about plate spinning?" Shi Lian said cheerfully. "That's not hard at all. Child's play. What else can you do?" "How's shattering boulders on my chest? That's too old school. Anything else?" Only then did Shi Lian come to realize even street performers needed to keep up with the times. All of his best tricks were nothing more than yesterday's news, and there were none left who'd appreciate his craft. The crowd was beginning to break up. Without any other choice, he brought out his ultimate technique. He took out from his sleeves a set of protection charms he made with his own hands and called out again. "Free protection charms for watching the performance. They're handmade. Don't walk on by and miss out on this chance." Hearing that there were freebies, the dispersed crowd soon came back. "What kind of protection charms? Which temple blessed them? Is it the Heavenly Martial Emperor? Do you have any for wealth? Give me a wealth charm, please. I want one from Zhu Yang, please. Say one for me." No. The one I'm giving away is for the Crown Prince of Shanla, blessed by the Puchi Shrine, for sure effective." Of course it'd be effective. Other heavenly officials had at least thousands of people praying to them daily. Their ears rang with white noise, and with even just a little too much work, they'd pass it down to junior officials under them. As for Shi Lian, at most, he'd only have a few praying to him at once, so who was more likely to actually hear prayers? "What the hell? You've never heard of him before." Shi Lian added, "Well, it's okay if you've never heard of him. The Puchi Shrine is located 7 miles out of Puchi Village. Everyone's welcome to pay a visit, and there's no need to bring offerings." Before he even finished, the crowd had already broken up. Every single one of the spectators littered the charms away soon after, and Shi Lian trotted over to pick them up, patting them clean before stuffing them back into his sleeves, and not looking the least bit bothered. As he picked, a pair of cloth shoes stepped before him. Shi Lian looked up and saw Long Ying's raven black eyes peeking out from under bandages, watching him intently. "Oh, what's wrong? Go over there and sit with Guzi. Just wait for me a bit." Long Ying was quiet. Just then, the 2 doors to a mansion At the end of the large street suddenly burst open and a man was thrown out, angry shouts following behind him. "Quack doctor!" The pedestrians on the street immediately rushed over to watch the show. The thundering footsteps trampled by, and those protection charms that weren't yet picked up were instantly crushed, dirtied, and ripped. Shi Lian watched speechlessly and gave up on saving them. He made Long Ying go to the back and watch over Guzi, and then he himself went to check things out. As he approached the entrance to the mansion, a man looking to be a wealthy merchant was arguing with an old man who looked like a doctor. "What'd you tell me when you came yesterday? Didn't you say there was nothing to worry about? How'd you explain today? My wife didn't fall or eat anything bad, so how did things become like this?" "When I came to diagnose your wife yesterday, she was perfectly fine. You need a cultivator, not a doctor." The wealthy merchant was outraged. "My son isn't lost yet, so why are you cursing him, you fake doctor? Watch yourself. I might sue you for all your assets." "Even if you sue me, there's nothing to be done. I really can't read that pulse. I've never seen anything like it before in my life." "Find yourself a new doctor. Maybe go find a cultivator." Oh, please look here. There's a cultivator here. I'm a cultivator." "Weren't you a street performer?" "Well, that was only a side gig. Thank you." "Will you please bring me to see the esteemed madame?" "Oh, Shi Lian, what are you getting in on? Of course he had to go help save someone. Of course he would." Within the mansion came shrill screaming. No doubt all the ladies in waiting were panicking. The new doctor called by the wealthy merchant wasn't going to arrive just yet, and the men in desperate plight will do anything. So he dragged Shi Lian to the door to see his wife. And he grabbed that doctor on the way in too. When the men entered the bedchamber, there was blood all over the floor. Oh, and upon the large flowered curtained bed laid a young woman, her face white as a sheet from severe pain. Her agony was so acute she was hugging her belly and rolling around. The ladies in waiting not held her down. Oh, she'd be ad they not held her down. He could feel the hairs on his neck stand. That chamber was heavy with the essence of evil, and the essence came from one place, that woman's belly. "Don't move, there's something in her belly that's not right. Is my wife about to give birth? It's only been 5 months. How can she give birth now?" "If she wasn't going to give birth, then you have no clue what's wrong and you're a quack. You can't even read a pulse. Everyone be quiet." Then he flipped out Feng Shin. "Oh, what are you planning?" Then he saw Shi Lian drop his hand and the sword floated in midair and everyone was astonished. Feng Shin hummed from above, the tip of the blade facing down, pointing at the swollen belly of that woman. The killing aura of the sword was intense, and the crowd saw that the woman's belly suddenly moved. A lump of flesh raised up, jerking left then right. "Oh my God, MXTX, what are you doing? What is this body horror?" It thrashed until finally the woman hacked and coughed violently and a stream of black smoke emerged from her mouth. Oh! Feng Shin had been waiting, and the sword immediately struck that black smoke. That woman let out a long wail of, "My son!" and passed out on the spot. Shi Lian called back the sword and sheathed it anew, turning to the doctor. "It's fine now." Oh! The doctor's eyes were wide, mouth open, and Shi Lian waved in front of him a couple times before he hesitantly approached. The wealthy merchant looked joyous. "Is my son safe?" However, the doctor felt the woman's pulse and he said, his voice trembling, "It's gone." "Gone? How did she just miscarry?" "The madam didn't miscarry. The baby is gone. Gone, do you understand?" "What's the difference?" "Quite different. Miscarriage is miscarriage. Gone means this. There was indeed a child in Madame's belly at first, but now that child has disappeared. Sure enough, the abdomen of that woman was swollen at first, but now there was no sign of external injury, yet it had shriveled down, looking exceedingly unnatural." The wealthy merchant was shocked. "What, wasn't my son just there in her belly?" "The one inside earlier wasn't your child. The one blowing up Madame's belly was that cloud of black smoke." Oh. After the doctor made sure the woman had only passed out, there wasn't any life-threatening signs, they left the chamber. "Sir Cultivator, how should I address you? Which temple did you come from? Which deity do you worship?" "There's no need for sir, and the name is Shi." At first he wanted to say he was from Puchi Shrine, but when the words came to his lips, for some reason, it turned into Qiandong Temple. When those words left his lips, his face was oddly hot. The wealthy merchant owed and said, "I've never heard of it before. Must it be far?" He didn't know how far it was either. He was like, After a few courteous greetings, the wealthy merchant finally came to this point, his voice full of horror. "Dao Zhang, what was that monster earlier? What my wife nurtured in her belly, had it always been that thing, that cloud of black smoke? With the subject change, Shilian also turned serious. It might not have always been that way. Didn't you say when the doctor came yesterday that Madame was perfectly fine? Her pulse was all right then, but messed up today. I'm afraid it was only last night that something happened to the baby. Please think. Last night, did the Madame do anything? Or did anything strange happen? Well, nothing happened at all last night. My wife never left the house, ever since she paid her respects at the palace of Zhuyang and received this child. We built a small Zhuyang shrine at home, and she'd chant and burn incense without ever leaving the front or the back doors. She's extremely devout. Then, did she have any strange dreams? Yes. Oh. Dao Zhang, you have such godly premonitions. My wife really did have a strange dream last night. She dreamt of a small child playing with her, calling her mom. Halfway through the dream, she felt something kick in her belly, and she woke up. Afterwards, she came to me happily, telling the child in her belly couldn't wait to see Mom and Dad's faces, and the child could come to greet her first. I was humoring her the whole time, too. It's that child that's problematic. Around how old was that child? What did it look like? Did the Madame say anything? Dao Zhang is a polite address for cultivators. Since cultivators cultivate spiritual power, they were also considered exorcists, which is why the doctor told the merchant to look for a cultivator instead of a doctor. The wealthy merchant was covered in cold sweat from shock. I'm afraid she won't remember. At the time, she already told me she wasn't sure how old the child was, only that it was fairly young, begging her to hold it, and when she held it, it was light. I'm going to ask a few more questions. Please answer them honestly, otherwise I won't be able to find the truth of all this. First, are there any conflicts between wives fighting for favor? Second, had this Madame ever aborted a child? Asking about conflicts between wives fighting over favors was to see whether this was a curse that came from mad jealousy. When women who had been locked in a deep harem got jealous, they could do anything. Asking about abortion was because if the child was aborted for questionable reasons, then there may be grudges left behind in the mother's body, making the new baby suffer. Under Shilian's questioning, the wealthy merchant admitted to everything truthfully. Unbelievably, everything was spot on. Not only did he have a number of wives in the household, bickering nonstop every day, he also had a lover waiting for him to bring her in. Afterwards, the Madame's servant girl also reported that the mistress was originally only a mistress and had once been pregnant. She listened to the flawed diagnosis of the street homeopaths that declared her a baby a girl. And since she wanted a boy to strengthen her foothold, she aborted the child. After listening to all this, Shilian could feel a headache coming on. Dao Zhang, could this be a revenge of that unborn baby girl? It's a possibility, but not entirely. After all, Madame couldn't tell how old the child was in her dream and whether it was a girl or a boy. Then Dao Zhang, since that cloud of black smoke only just filled my wife's belly last night, where did my own son go? MX why we gotta go there? Why we gotta go there? Chapter 94, Pregnant with Evil, a new wave disturbs the peace. 2, he was probably devoured. Devoured? What should I do now? I've got another mistress who's pregnant. What if the monster comes again? There was another pregnant woman in this household? Well, calm down. Let me ask another question. Does the Madame remember where she met the child in her dream? She said it was hazy, but it seemed to be a large mansion. She doesn't remember much else. It was only a dream. Who could remember so clearly? After 40 years, I'm finally expecting a son. What misery! Dao Zhang, you will catch and kill that monster, right? I can't let it harm any more of my family. Oh, don't panic. I'll do my best. Good. Do you need anything? Any sort of compensation won't be a problem. He declined. I don't need compensation, but I do have a few things I'd like to request your help with. Can you find me a set of casual women's clothing? It has to be loose enough that men can wear. Also, I'm afraid I will need a lock of hair from the expecting mistress for drawing spells. You taking this down? Second, please advise your expecting mistress to sleep in a different chamber, but no matter where or when, if she should hear the voice of a strange child calling her mom, do not answer. Absolutely do not answer. Best if she doesn't even open her mouth. Even though when people dream, they often don't realize they're dreaming, their senses and awareness can be dulled. If you repeatedly remind her next to her ear, have it deeply ingrained in her mind, and maybe it'll work. Third, I have 2 little ones out there with me today, so please take care of them and give them something to eat. Small things like that, never mind 2 requests. Even 100 of them, I'll do it for you. Finally, it came to the most important item. 4. He took out from his sleeves a protection charm blessed by the Puchi shrine and passed it with both hands, speaking in a solemn tone. Please take this protection charm and yell, Your Highness the Crown Prince, please protect me. That way, this whole affair will be marked under the title of my shrine. That night, Shi Qingxuan once again changed into a woman's clothes. Why are we not surprised? Although he was no stranger to cross-dressing by now, it was still his first time pretending to be a pregnant woman. It didn't take him half an instant's time before he managed to put makeup on. He stuffed a pillow in his belly and then took a lock of his hair from the expecting mistress and hid it in his pillow and laid it on the bed. He was calm and composed, slowing his breathing, and it didn't take long before he deeply fell asleep. Okay, so are we dreaming? Okay. An unknown amount of time had passed before Shi Qingxuan slowly opened his eyes. Before his vision was no longer the bedchamber of the wealthy merchant's mistress, but an exquisite pavilion. Shi Qingxuan's first reaction was to feel whether Feng Xin was still next to him, and when he felt it, he relaxed. Feng Xin was a sacred sword, after all, so it was still tightly tied to his person. After he slowly sat up, he felt the bottom of his palms to be sticky. When he raised his hands to look, he found himself lying on a bed that was covered by terrifyingly large pools of blood, not yet dried, dyeing half of his body red, shockingly alarming. Shi Qingxuan was used to seeing strange sights, so he got off the bed, walked a couple steps, and suddenly felt something off about his person. He looked down, and it was that pillow, and hastily picked it up and stuffed it back to his belly anew. When he took another couple steps, his belly fell again. And Shi Qingxuan had to keep holding it with both hands as he looked around. I'm just imagining the Donghua trying to animate this and him being like... Having grown up in a palace, he was influenced by the things he saw and heard, unconsciously absorbing his surroundings. When it came to beauty, Shi Qingxuan had his own set of judgments. This little establishment to him might be exquisite, but it was filled with an air of fragrant enticement. So if you had to guess, this might be a restaurant or a palace of entertainment. Also, in comparison to the style of architecture of the day, this style was really quite old, very much like a building from hundreds of years ago, but he couldn't tell where. Thus, this wasn't likely to be the haunting of a fetus spirit aborted by the wealthy merchant. This is because when evil spirits create illusions, they can only use what they know. It was obvious that a centuries-old establishment could only come from evil spirits equally as old. After having walked around once, he found no one, and Shi Qingxuan returned to the chamber where he had first laid down. It was a woman's bedchamber. There was a chiffonier. The drawers could be pulled out, and inside were baby clothes and such toys like dolls and rattling drums. Shi Qingxuan checked each item carefully and found they were all brand new, indicating the lady of this room loved and cared for these objects. Meaning this child was full of love and affection. He rummaged around some more, and suddenly he was taken aback. In those baby clothes was a protection charm, and that charm was his. Flabbergasted, Shi Qingxuan had to verify it thrice. It wasn't a mistake. It was very much his protection charm. And it wasn't the same simple charm he went up into the mountains to pick herbs for, so drew and then tied by red thread by his own hands. This was the protection charm that 800 years ago, at the peak of prominence, the crown prince of Shanla, almost everyone in the country owned. The material and designs were all intricately elegant. Where it had come from, whether it had been blessed, were all written on it. Could it be the lady owner of this establishment was once his worshipper? Just then, in the dead silence, he heard a series of tee-hee, sniggles, sniggles, sniggles. No. It was the sniggles of that baby. Oh my God, that word. The sniggles, extremely abrupt, and it echoed everywhere. Its whereabouts obscure. Shi Qingxuan didn't move or react, but his mind was racing. Oh my God! New bride in the bridal sedan. Brimming tears past the hills, smile not under the bridal veil. It was the voice of the child spirit he heard at Mount Yuzhun when he was in the marriage sedan. When Shi Qingxuan snapped out of it, the laughter of the child spirit had come to an abrupt stop. He turned around swiftly but saw no shadows. After the affair of Mount Yuzhun had passed, he also asked after that child spirit in the spiritual communication array, but back then everyone told him there was no child spirit or anything of the sort to be found on the mountain. And it was only he who heard the child spirit's voice. Yet now, this was the second time this child spirit had appeared before him. So was this a coincidence, or was it intentional? The child spirit stopped laughing and called out, "Mom." This mom came from somewhere close, but Shi Lian couldn't figure out where. He stood unspeaking, holding his breath, his ears intent. "Mom, hug me." Oh, the voice came from his belly. Shi Lian had both his hands holding up a fake belly, and it was only now that he astonishingly realized that without knowing, the pillow in his hands had become heavier. He smacked it once soundly, and a lump of something came tumbling out of his clothes. It was a seemingly palish white little child, spewing something out of its mouth before scrambling away into the darkness. Oh my God, no, just nope. He rushed up to see, and the things it spewed out were some lumps of thread and a lock of black hair. The illusionment spell worked. The little ghost had wanted to devour Shi Lian's child the way it did the pregnant woman's, but instead devoured the cotton stuffing. He heard it cry sharply, "Mom!" No matter how it called, how pointedly it cried, Shi Lian still had held back, never opening his mouth. He determined that the spirit child was a fetus spirit, and this chamber was it or its mother's room where they had once lived. Evil spirits took the form and age of when they died, yet it had mostly shown itself as a cloud of black smoke or a blurry white shadow, which meant the spirit itself didn't know what it should look like, so it had no proper form. Also, the baby clothes in those drawers had clearly not been worn yet. Plus, that terrifying large pool of blood on the bed, Shi Lian deduced it was the lady of the chamber's miscarriage. But her unborn child already had a shape and retained a little bit of its own consciousness. Oh my God, MXTX, what? After becoming a fetus spirit, it wanted to return to its mother's belly, but it ended up knocking on the door of the madame of that wealthy merchant. When it called out "Mom" in the woman's dream, it was the wrong move for her to open her mouth and acknowledge it. It must be said the bond between mother and child was special, and the acknowledgement was a form of permission. When she opened her mouth, she gave that little evil thing the chance to enter. The little ghost snuck in, slid into her belly, and devoured the fetus that was originally there, a cuckoo in the nest. Shi Lian might be a man, but he wasn't sure whether if he opened his mouth, the child spirit would also take the chance to sneak into his belly. So just in case, he'd best keep his mouth shut. Oh, Megaverse, seriously? I just playing around with it. Oh my God. Thus, keeping his lips tightly sealed and gripping Feng Xin in hand, Shi Lian searched for traces of that child. Shi Lian possessed an exceedingly strong instinct when it came to danger, something that was refined through thousands of battles. Without needing to look clearly, as long as he had a hunch where it was, he'd thrust his sword and hit the mark 9 times out of 10. Although in the illusion created by that child spirit, Shi Lian's strikes were weakened. After getting struck multiple times, it was probably feeling rather choked up too. After a while, Shi Lian suddenly felt a sharp pain on the bottom of his foot. He had stepped onto something sharp, and he paused. Oh, the child spirit saw him falling for its trap and let out short spurts of sly cackles. The voice was tender, but it shouldn't have come from a small child. More like a malicious grown man, the contrast sharply distinct, making one's blood run cold. However, Shi Lian's face never even twitched, and he didn't stop in his step. He flicked his hand and struck his sword out again, jabbing right on target. The child spirit yelped in pain, having burned itself and hid far away. Only did Shi Lian take a look to glance under his boot. It turned out he'd stepped on a small, thin needle that stood straight up. Oh no! It was obviously placed by the child on purpose, so it seemed like he was hoping for Shi Lian to cry out in pain, but it miscalculated. Shi Lian was very good at tolerating pain. Oh, never mind stepping on a needle. If his leg were cramped by a large snare, he wouldn't utter a sound if the situation called for it. That tiny little needle was deeply ingrained, and Shi Lian had wanted to pull it out at first, but since the child spirit ran away after having devoured nothing, he was afraid if he took this chance, it would go harm others. So he chased after it down the hall with the needle still stuck in his foot. Oh, come on, Shi Lian! He stopped feeling the pain after a while and ran like the wind. There was no sign of the child spirit anywhere. Did it actually become scared of my attacks? Just then, a window not far away opened by itself without a breeze. Shi Lian immediately rushed and approached, but was shocked by what he saw. Outside the window, there was no sign of streets, no mountains, no pedestrians, only a deep, bottomless lake. On the other side of this lake was a house, and in that house sat 2 small children. It was Long Ying and Guzi, sitting at a table eating. Yet they didn't notice at all that just above their heads was a thick black swirl of smoke, tee-heeing and cackling, crying crisply, "Mom, Mom!" Shi Lian's heart instantly dropped. His hands gripped the windowsill, and he was about to call out and warn them, but he remembered not to open his mouth, and he forced his voice back down. Although this was nothing more than that child spirit illusion, he didn't know whether Long Ying and Guji were really pulled in. If so, then any harm that happened to them would affect their real bodies. He wanted to find a vase or something to throw over as a warning, but he couldn't find even anything. Tables and chairs wouldn't fit through the window, and then there was a lake between the two buildings, so did that mean he had to swim over? Just then Guzi looked tired and yawned. The cloud of black smoke gathered and looked as if it was about to sneak into his mouth. The defenses of the children's body were very weak. Even without permission, maybe that thing could intrude. He had no time to think about swimming. In a split second, he shouted, "Close your mouth! Run!" The moment the words came out, Long Yi and Guzi jolted and closed their mouths in surprise, leaping to their feet. The child spirit, however, had suddenly disappeared, and the next second it exploded in Shi Lian's face. Even though Shi Lian closed his mouth, the moment he shouted, he could already feel a stream of cold air going down his throat. That black smoke entering his stomach, his innards numb as if everything would be frozen in a second. He gritted his teeth and hastily tore apart a few protection charms. He took out the herbs and charm papers within and chewed them with force, swallowing them. It didn't take long before his throat itched and the cloud of black smoke was retched out. Oh, okay. Shi Lian covered his mouth with his sleeve, coughing nonstop, choking with tears. His mind was rapidly trying to think of a way to counter it. After that cloud of black smoke was puked out, it still swirled and clung onto him relentlessly. Thus Shi Lian pressed on the windowsill, raised himself up, and leapt, jumping into the lake outside. Oh! Shi Lian plunged deep into the heart of the lake. He held his breath, crossed his legs and arms, and assumed a meditating position, letting his body slowly sink to the bottom of that freezing lake. Once his heartbeat returned to normal, he looked up and could somewhat make out the black fog swirling above, sealing the entire surface of the water. Once he emerged, he must take in a deep breath, and should he inhale, he'd for sure suck in that child spirit into his stomach. If a full-grown man was to have a giant swollen belly, it definitely wouldn't be very funny. However, jumping into the water was only going to give himself some time to think. It didn't take long before Shi Lian came up with an idea. He thought, so what if I swallow it? I'll just swallow Feng Shen too after. He'd also learned that trick when he performed in the streets, although it might hurt. Whatever, as long as the child spirit could be captured. Oh, come on! His mind made up, Shi Lian released his arms and started swimming to the side. However, a muffled, deep sound of sloshing water came from above. And suddenly a vast, burning, vivid crimson red appeared before his eyes. Thick, winding raven black locks filled his vision. Splashes and air bubbles bubbled furiously, and nothing could be seen. Shi Lian blinked, trying desperately to strip away the thousands upon millions of crystal-like bubbles. But then he felt a pair of strong arms. One hand circled around his waist, and the other grasped his chin. In the next second, something cold and soft covered his lips. No! Oh! My gosh, we gotta take this thing off. What the fudge? What the fudge? I want. Ask and you shall receive. You wanted to know why this cover shows him unsubmerged underwater? Well, you bitches didn't spoil me, so now we know. But it was in a dream. It was in a dream. So actually, it was getting too sweaty with this. I was like, I gotta take it off, and I downed my wine. So I've got coffee now. We're gonna sober up for this discussion. Oh my God! In hindsight, I probably could have waited another week so this would come out on Valentine's Day. But no, we still have the subsequent chapters. Like, man, you know what? Now in hindsight, I probably could have read 91 and 92 with 88 and 89. I'm glad I didn't, because I had 2 hours of conversation then, but this video is probably going to be ridiculously long. But oh my God, just MXTX. How does she do it? How does she go from 2 chapters of this one event to miscarriages and pregnancy body horror and again more Omegaverse stuff and just what the hell? Why? Just MXTX, what are you doing? I wanted to go back. We did not get an image of the kiss in this chapter. It's probably going to be in the next set if it's still happening. But we did get a very pretty picture. I'm glad we got a picture of this set of Shilian and the lamps. The 3,000 lamps. Damn it, it was Hua Cheng. It was Hua Cheng. I have so many theories in my head right now. I have so many theories about the fetus spirit, about the child. I have so many theories about the lanterns, about all of this. All I can ask, and I cannot stress this enough, please do not spoil me. Please don't ask me if I don't talk about something in this discussion. I wanted to bring that up too, because I've had a few questions thrown around by patrons and YouTube commenters where they've been like, what do you think about this? And I get nervous about those questions because those questions make me nervous because they make me think that I'm being pointed towards a point that I need to think about in the story. Like, for example, the only time I've been spoiled with this story so far is way back in volume 1. I had, around the time I was watching the Donghua, someone said, they're like, oh, well, hey, you should maybe think about how, what do you think about Hua Cheng and General Hua being similar? Do you think there's anything to that? And then we come to find out that they are the same person. So I felt really spoiled about that because that person commenting was trying to get me to think about something a certain way, and it ruined the surprise of a plot point. And I really want to be surprised, like in these chapters. So I only ask, please, if I don't talk about it in the discussion, don't ask me about it. And that's just a me thing. It is nothing against the commenter. It's nothing against anybody. That's just me and how I encounter and react to a story. If I miss it, it's fine. We'll get to it eventually. And if we don't, then you could ask about it. Like make a Google Doc or something with your questions that I've not answered, with my opinions about them on. But I just don't want to be asked. It's just a personal thing as a reactor and a content creator. I want to encounter the story and interact with it as if I'm reading it for the first time. And if I'm asked questions like that, I feel I'm being prodded in a certain way. So that's just my disclaimer going into this. But I wanted to look something up real quick about the flowers. Going back to the land of the tinder. I wanted to go back to that part there. Where is that? Upon Basie Hill, land of the tinder. I wanted to go back to the part where the flowers talked to Hua Cheng, where they said something here. Right? So where is it at? Where are they talking about him? Where he says, stab me, and he gives him the mission, and the route is hard. Where's that moment there? Okay, yeah, where it says here, this is your chance. You won't find another shop that serves this dish, even if you leave this land of ours. If you don't seize this opportunity, you'll never get a taste, even if you dream of it, for 800 years. That wasn't satisfying. That wasn't either. But the point is, 800 years later, in a dream, Hua Cheng gets to kiss Shi Lian. And that was a dream. So now, MXTX, it is only fair that you let this happen in real life. Oh my God. Which Shi Lian's never been kissed before. This is his first theoretical kiss in a dream. So what do we do with this? Oh my God. I had to bring Whiteboard Queen out because I'm going to have a lot of theories. And I got off track with my spoiler talk. My point is I'm going to have a lot of theories going around, and so I just don't want any confirmations or deconfirmations. If I'm way off base, if I am totally wrong, please let me be wrong. Let me wallow, let me wade in my ignorance like my own icy lake, and me and my own version of function will take care of it later. But oh my God, these 4 chapters were amazing and very informative and very intriguing. The whole thing with the wine cup went a lot better than I thought it would. Went a lot better than I thought it would. I really thought that Shi Lian was going to be in trouble and he was going to have this horrible experience happen, but no. Hua Cheng, I am fully convinced that Hua Cheng is behind so much of this. helping out his man, that now the merchant's telling the story of Shi Lian, and they've made it a romance. They made this play a romance between Shi Lian and Hua Cheng. It's a romantic play. And Shi Lian's kind of like, were we that close? We were, weren't we? Like, I love that it's slowly dawning on Shi Lian that he's like, I really have been pretty forward with Hua Cheng, haven't I? Like, is this how it looks from the outside? Interesting. But, okay, so we find out that Ming Yi gave him the cup. We'll go through this bizarreness. That Ming Yi gave him the cup. And Ming Yi actually, if I'm going to put this aside here, did not intend to give Shi Lian the cup on purpose. He didn't want to have it laid on him. So he was like, oh no. And Shi Lian's the first person they saw. So I find it interesting. I want to make some notes. And God, my voice is cracking. I swear I feel 100% fine. But all right, we talk about this, okay? So questions and theories. We're going to put them up here. I feel like that's all Whiteboard Kun is going to be, right? So I want to put Ming Yi up here, our Earth Master. Ming Yi did not want any plays about them. So I wonder if there's anything with that. So what about their past? What's up with that? They didn't want any plays being acted about them. Maybe they were just like Shi Lian and they were like, really don't need to see that. But Ming Yi is one of the most popular ones. So that's rather curious, right? But in any case, what I find interesting is there's this dichotomy that's being set up, right? And we're going to put it over here, okay? So this dichotomy is being set up that as far as the heavenly realm is concerned, Shi Lian has no followers and no power, right? He's shackled. His temples are destroyed. He's not been worshipped for 800 years. He's pretty much just a forgotten deity that just happens to be insanely strong, so that's why he's still around. But it's slowly coming to light that reality might be a little bit different, right? And the reality is mainly Hua Cheng. The reality is that Hua Cheng might be acting behind the scenes, BTS, and that Shi Lian is still with power after all this time, but the shackles hide it. I think that that's something I hadn't really even thought of, but the thing of it is, that could very well be the case because Shi Lian this whole time has been shackled, so there's no way of measuring how much spiritual power he actually has. It's not coming to him. So Hua Cheng may have been amassing all this spiritual power for Shi Lian this entire time, like with the 3,000 lanterns, and the heavenly realm just hasn't noticed because there's no way for them to track it. It's like they took out their only tracking device. They can't tell how much power Shi Lian really has because they've shackled him. So I wonder if Hua Cheng has intentionally done that to be like a double-edged sword, being like, haha, this is what you get, or if he's been building up all this power to give to Shi Lian for the moment if and when he has the shackles taken off. We don't know, but I find that fascinating that there seems to be like what the heavenly realm thinks about Shi Lian and what the reality is, right? And the fact of the matter is that the heavenly realm believed that the only plays of Shi Lian were those of Feng Xin or Mu Qing's. And they were only like, what's interesting is Shi Lian being a villain in those plays, or the one that they give as an example is that someone would write Shi Lian as a villain, arranging for plots like how the lonely, abandoned Mu Qing would be bullied. Interesting. Or how Shi Lian would rob Feng Xin of his beloved. That's so bizarre. One, that the lonely, abandoned Mu Qing. Was Mu Qing abandoned or lonely? No, he kind of left Shi Lian, right? And then Shi Lian robbing Feng Xin of his beloved, unless it's like a sword or something that he pawned off. Feng Xin doesn't like women, so that's curious. I find that interesting that they inserted Shi Lian as these antagonistic characters for scenarios that don't seem to match up with Feng Xin or Mu Qing to our knowledge so far in the story. That's rather curious. But Shi Lian, he's like, okay. And so then they tell him to down the cup. Now, the good thing about this is, the one thing that makes me feel a lot better is that nothing happened with Shi Lian while he downed the liquor. I was really afraid that Shi Lian was going to do something or something was going to happen to him, and it was going to be like I don't know. I don't like the trope. I'm not a big fan of the trope of a partner being drunk and then something romantic happening when the other partner is not drunk. It's kind of like it teeters along the line of that non-consensual thing, and I'm not a big fan of it. I'm kind of like, eh. And so I was afraid something would happen while he was drinking. I'm glad that wasn't the case. I'm glad he was totally sober. He was sober in his dreams by the time by the time Hua Cheng kissed him. And Hua Cheng technically kissed him to keep him from being possessed by a giant smoke baby, which we'll get to. But yeah. So he drains the 1 cup. And what's interesting is that Jun Woo straightens as if he's going to speak, but he doesn't say anything quickly, right? It's like he gets up like, okay, I'll step in if I've got to. And Windmaster's like, well, if you don't want to do it, I'll drop 1,000 merits and we'll just end this. You don't have to play in the game. And so Shi Lian feels bad, 1, because he doesn't want to get Jun Woo involved, and 2, because he's like, I don't want you to drop 1,000 merits for me to... He's like, why are you wasting your merits on something as insignificant as me not wanting to play? So he just empties the cup. And then he feels a bit dizzy about it. But luckily, apparently it's top shelf, so he doesn't feel too bad about it afterwards. And so, yeah. And then we have the Banyu play. Instead, we have the Banyu snake sucking scene. The snake poison sucking scene with Hua Cheng and Shi Lian. Now, honestly, I could see the masses getting excited about the idea of stories of a deity like being in a romance with a supreme ghost. Like, I could see that being popular. It's like, oh, the forbidden love. Oh my. Like, oh, what is this? What are these stars? Like, what is this craziness? Like, I could see the mortal realm going crazy for stories like that, right? And Hua Cheng probably doesn't care because he's like, well, it's just the truth. I love Shi Lian. And Shi Lian's kind of like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I like the heavenly officials are all the adventures in the kingdom of Banyu. Now, what's interesting is we don't know how far the play goes. Like, do the merchants also talk about Banyu and Pei Su? Would Pei Ming have a deeper investment in the play if that were the case? We don't know, right? But Shi Lian, I like that he doesn't comment. He's just like, oh, I remember Tian Shang. Remember him? And then he's like, well... He's like, I don't know how to feel about this. What I love is that they established that there have been plays about Hua Cheng before, but the titles of them, where they're like, the red demon burnt the temples of 33 gods and not even the heavens could do shit. I love it. I love that one of just the story of him like going and challenging the 33 gods. That play, or the rain crimson sought flower hung the martial and civil gods and slapped them around with but one hand. Like, I love it. I love that most of the plays were about Hua Cheng beating up the heavenly realm. And this one is, by comparison, a much more digestible play for the heavenly officials, right? And so, Shi Lian, I love that he goes, well, I kind of did say San Long like that. And I kind of did do these gestures of hooking arms or hugging shoulders. And he did carry me. Oh, And MXTX has a way, because I've read Modao Zushi, MXTX has a way of writing her protagonist to be like, oh, like at least one, like in Modao Zushi, it's Wei Wuxian that realizes, oh, have I been thinking these things? Do I feel this way? And in Shi Lian's case, it's even like more pronounced. Like Shi Lian is like pure virgin that's like, did I give the wrong signal? It's like, maybe a little bit. Maybe you've been doing it and not realizing it because it feels natural and you want to have these emotions and you like San Long and you just haven't come to terms with it. So, but Shi Lian, he doesn't say anything because he doesn't want to interrupt everybody's good time, and the fact that they're not like berating him about it is interesting. And I like that the water master asks who the squires are. So we have a question about this. Nan Fong and Fu Yao are in detention. Why? Why are they in detention? So that's going to get brought up. I want to put this on here. Nan Fong and Fu Yao. Why are they in detention? Is it because they got along? Is it because Shi Lian got near Hua Cheng and they didn't do anything about it? Is it because of the thing with Pei Su? Did Pei Ming have an involvement? Did Pei Ming be like, these junior officials didn't protect their fellow deity and got them in detention because of that? We don't know. And it's dropped immediately. Shi Lian's like, oh, they're both locked up? Well, what a shame. And that's it. Like, that's all that's said about that. I'm like, MXTX, that's all you're going to give us? Is that they're in jail? And Shi Lian's like, oh, well, that's a bummer. Whoop. What the hell? Like, come on. So that's interesting. I'm assuming we'll eventually touch base on that. But what's interesting is everybody is thinking about Banyu, and so they're asking about Little Pei. Little Pei. And the Water Master says, how is Little Pei doing, General Pei? And Pei Ming says, how well can he do? His heart isn't in the right place. I don't care anymore. And I like the Windmaster. Now, this part here, say some stuff about the Water Master. The Windmaster's like, so, it's like, well, so in your eyes, where's the right place for his heart? Little Pei's future is a future, but the little lady's future is nothing. Like, the Windmaster's saying, like, that's kind of unfair. Like, you were choosing to put your successor's future ahead of this girl that did nothing and willing to do something very, not very nice. And says so in a rude gesture. And so, I don't really know how to feel about the Water Master, if I'm being honest. I don't mind them. I love the Windmaster. The Windmaster is one of my favorite characters. I love them. They are amazing. But I don't know how I feel about the Water Master. I feel like they're a little too arrogant. I don't know. Because he tells her to mind her manners, and then it seems that she kind of like, she's like, oh, okay, and just like listens to her brother. And Shi Lian thinks, the Windmaster says she's not afraid of her older brother, but that doesn't seem to be entirely true. And the one thing that got me was that the Water Master is like, listen, like, how many times do I have to tell you not to walk around outside in that form all the time? What a disgrace. I don't care what appearance you like. You must use your true form when you're out. I kind of don't like that part, because that's the Water Master being like, don't be a woman, you're a man, sort of thing. And I'm like, but the Windmaster likes being in its female form. So, in their female form. So, you should shut up. I don't feel great about that. I can see now why Hua Cheng does not like the Water Master, because he's like, oh, it's a tyrant, and he's just become this god of wealth. He's too big for his britches. I feel like Hua Cheng and their view of the Water Master is because of their arrogance and kind of self-righteousness, right? I mean, I can definitely see, like, there is brotherly love between them, because even when he's being all, like, parental about the whole, like, well, you're in 8th place, like, do you think 8th place is good enough? And then he's like, but you did get a lot of lanterns, like, maybe next year try for a better place. Like, you can see the Water Masters coming at it from a place of good, like, they want the best for their sibling. But I feel like some of the things the Water Master says and does, I'm like, that's a bit arrogant, and like, that's kind of out of line and not any of your business, so maybe shut up. I don't know. I don't get warm fuzzy feelings from the Water Master, and I see why them and General Pei are friends. Ling Wen is the outlier. Ling Wen, I'm like, why are they with these two bros? Like, these two bros are like sharing a Pabst Blue Ribbon in a sauna. Ling Wen's over here working her ass off trying to get taxes filed. Like, where's the connection? Like, it's the weirdest thing, right? The weirdest thing. But in any case, Ling Wen, I like Ling Wen's like little jab that she gets at Pei Ming throughout all of this. And then the thing about it is, when the Water Master ends their lecture with the Wind Master, they're like, what if you bumped into someone strong in both spiritual power and ill intent, like General Pei? And Pei Ming like spits up his wine. So it's just like, I don't know. The Water Master is very hard to read. They're an interesting character. So yeah, then we get to the Battle of the Lanterns, and you just knew it, right? You just knew the Battle of the Lanterns. The moment that they said the Great Martial Palace had 961 and a close count, and no one in history had broke 1,000. The moment they said no one in history broke 1,000, I was like, Shi Lian's going to. It's that perfect setup. It's like, as a writer, sometimes you see a storyline and you're like, oh, that's where it's going, right? Now, 3,000 was not anticipating. I figured that it was going to be like, at the end of the thing, they're going to be like, Shi Lian has 1,008 lanterns. It was going to be like, oh my gosh, more than Junwoo. I did not anticipate 3,000 lanterns. Like, easily the most, right? I also like the little note in the novel, the digital one here, saying Watermaster Zhang is Pei Ming calling Shi Wudu Watermaster bro. Like, oh, bro, come on, bro. Like, I love it. So let's write out here our top 10, right? Our top 10 heavenly officials as of right now with the lanterns. Now, what's kind of crazy is, if I remember correctly, it was Qirong back in the golden days of Shanla that had like 500 lanterns given to Shi Lian alone in one palace. Like, crazy talk, right? Now, I do like that Shi Lian addresses that even back when they were, one of the most prominent heavenly officials, I feel like it's important that they say that they had to adjust for inflation. Because Shi Lian's like, well, the lanterns back 800 years ago aren't nearly the same size or weight that they are now, so it's hard to compare the two, right? But I feel like Shi Lian would have been right up there with Junwoo way back then. So Junwoo is officially number 2. We have Junwoo that has 961. And Shi Lian it's over 3,000, right? And then we have a Shi Wudu, which is the Water Master. And we'll get them, right? Interesting. And so the Rain Master is fascinating. The Rain Master is cool. And I really like that there's just one lantern that comes up for the Rain Master, and that's it. At first I thought it was the Water Master, and I was like, really? But no, it's the Rain Master, one lantern. And Shi Lian, I like that Shi Lian thinks he's drunk, and he's like, was that right? And they're like, no, it's just one. It was lit by the bull from the Rain Master's house for the sake of showing his face. So basically it's the Rain Master being like, I'm still alive. My bull sent this. Peace out. But I'm really glad MXTX includes this conversation here, because it's rather important. Because Shi Lian, kind of makes the assumption, saying, oh, is it because the Rain Master's followers are mostly farmers, so they don't have the funds for the offerings? And I love that the Wind Master says, yeah, do you have some kind of misunderstanding of farmers? Because here's the thing, my family's a farm family, and we're not a big farm family. We have like 30 cows. And like, we don't farm crops or anything like that. We just have like livestock, like 30 cows. And that's pretty much it. We used to raise pigs, but that's pretty much it. We're not like a big family farm like some of these ones around us are. But we weren't poor necessarily, but we weren't rich. But now some of the farmers that have thousands of acres that they farm, yeah, they're pretty wealthy. They're pretty well off. So when Shi Qingxuan says, yeah, a lot of the farmers are wealthy, right? It's like, no, yeah. Farmers in modern times are not poor, usually. I mean, they're usually okay. Doing fine. The big family farms, they have like thousands and thousands of acres. They're doing great. But yeah, so that was rather interesting. But I like that she says that the Rain Master told them to offer fresh vegetables and fruits instead of money. And then after a couple days, take home the offerings and eat them themselves. So the Rain Master is interesting. The Rain Master is very humble, doesn't want a lot, just wants to do their job, make a move on, and that's it. And that's rather fascinating, right? And I like that Shi Lian doesn't have really anything to say, except like he kind of seems a little envious or marveling at the Rain Master and how they can be so simplistic. Interesting indeed. But yeah, so then this whole scene here where they were announcing like the top 10 with the lanterns, it felt like Hogwarts. It felt like Harry Potter. It felt like they were like Gryffindor, 410 lanterns. Like it just felt like a moment out of a Harry Potter novel. That's the only way I can describe the feeling of it. This guy, just announcer, just shouting out how many lanterns. So we start out at the bottom with Qi Ying, our Yijin man, that has 421 lanterns. Not anything to shake a stick at, right? rather interesting. And then Ming Yi, the Earth Master, Ming Yi ends up having 444. So barely enough lanterns. Now I want to make note, 444. Number 4 is the Japanese number for bad luck or death. So I don't know how I feel about 444. But what I love about this is, well, one, Chan Jishin, he left a long time ago. He did not stay for the after party. He was like, bye. He left in the middle of the whole play and never came back. I'm kind of sad about that because I want to know more about his character, but I'm sure he'll come back in the novel. We got like 5 more volumes of this, so I'm sure he'll be back, but I was just like, ugh. But he left. And then I love that Ming Yi has been like in the back eating soup. I said this during the reaction, but they're just like, they remind me of just sitting in the back eating the food. Like, you guys are not going to eat this? Like, can I bag this up? Can I take this home? Or is this leftovers? You're going to just leave this out? Like, I feel like I would be Ming Yi at a party because I would just be by the food table constantly at the end of the night being like, you going to throw that out? Like, that's how I would be. So I love it. I also love that the Windmaster is like, go! Congratulations! You got this! Yay! I'm like, too few! I ship them so hard. It's just the fact the Windmaster is so supportive of the Earthmaster, and the Earthmaster's like, thanks. It's great. And then number 7 is, or number 8 is the Windmaster. So Shi Qingxuan, get their name right. I always get their name. Qingxuan. And has a 523. So a pretty big leap there. 523. I love that everybody I'm surprised the Windmaster isn't higher, if I'm being honest, because I feel like they would have been higher, or they should have been. But then we have Feng Shen and Mu Ching, right? But I feel like they should have been higher, but they get so excited. I love that the Windmaster's so happy with how they did. And then the Watermaster gives them a hard time, but then tries to make up for it, being like, well, next year should be better. And I like that Shi Lian kind of sees like the sibling dynamic between them. That's really good. And so then Ling Wen is number 7 and has a total of 536. So barely more than that. I feel so bad for Ling Wen these last couple chapters. I didn't talk about it in the last chapter, but the whole double standard that Ling Wen talks about is so true. It's so true of anime and Donghua characters, I feel, when she points out being like, oh, well, when a girl has multiple boyfriends, she's a trollop and a tramp, but when a guy has multiple lady friends, they're just a womanizer and they should be praised for it. Like, the double standard, I was like, point it out. And I love that Ling Wen, she has to deal with a lot. Like, the guy's all saying in the heavenly realm there that she only had so many worshippers because she used a male form and kissed the ass of the martial gods. I'm like, she works her ass off. You don't even know what she does. You don't know her. I was like, Ling Wen works so hard to get you all information and you just give her shit. Like, I was with Shi Lian just being like, it's not easy being a woman official. Like, no joke, right? That just sucked. And so then we have Mu Qing and Feng Shen. And so it says Nan Yang is Feng Shen and Shan Zheng is Mu Qing. So we know that Feng Shen gets 6th and Mu Qing gets 5th. And Feng Shen had 572. And he had 573. And so the idea that their temples are near one another and their followers just fight back and forth trying to outdo one another for the festival is just ridiculous. And when Shi Lian was like, rather than fighting each other to the death, shouldn't they go home and celebrate the holiday? I really thought what he was saying was, shouldn't they work together and like get the most lanterns at once? But I guess you can't team up with a heavenly official. You can't tag team this competition. It has to be an individual one. But still, yeah, Shi Lian's like, this festival is supposed to be about families, not fighting in the streets like cats and dogs. Like, you guys can go home. Like, it's kind of humorous, but it's also kind of sad, right? And so we have number 4 is Pei Ming, surprising no one, who has, how many did he have? 580. So he barely had more than Mu Qing and Feng Shin, barely. That's interesting. And we find out that he's lost several lanterns because of the whole Pei Su incident. He lost several lanterns, and that was that. So I like that Ling Wen and the Water Master just kind of pat his shoulders like they're there. I'm like, you, for being so ridiculous, Pei Ming, you deserve the demotion. And so then we have the top three. And they act like the Water Master was the winner, right? Because they said he has 718, which is a big jump, right? And is dangerously close to Jun Woo, actually. Dangerously close. Like still hundreds off, but for the Heavenly Emperor in charge of everything, Shi Wudu is actually fairly close. So, interesting. I do love the Windmaster being like, it's my brother. And Shi Lian's like, I know it's your brother. Like, that's so cute. Like, the Windmaster just like shouting to Shi Lian, shaking him. And he's like, I know it's your brother. That is the most precious thing in the world, right? And then Ming Yi's still eating. And then Shi Wudu says, wait. I like the Water Master's the one that stops them. Being like, we didn't count everyone. The top 10's not all out. And the Windmaster's like, no, they're not. And there's only 9. And that's when all of the lanterns like light up the sky. Oh, I cannot wait to see this in the Donghua. This is going to be beautiful to see all the lanterns. Now, my theory, because they all came from one little shrine, right? It said the Chandong Temple, the Palace of the Crown Prince. And in the actual book, in the actual official English copy, they translate it to saying, where is it at here? They translate it to saying that it's from the Thousand Lights Temple, the Palace of the Crown Prince, 3000. Yeah. I love it. I love it so much. So my theory is that Hua Cheng, the Thousand Light Temple is that little shrine where he first talked to him. That's my theory, is that the Thousand Light Temple, my theory is that it is the shrine where Shi Lian first spoke to Hua Cheng. That is my theory. And my theory also is that Hua Cheng sent the 3,000 lanterns. Because, yeah, he could get that money. He's a supreme ghost. He could find it from somewhere. And Hua Cheng is not, much to Shi Lian's probably chagrin, Hua Cheng is probably not above getting them by sketchy means. So he's probably like, yeah, I just got these 3,000 lanterns. How I paid for them? Don't worry about it. So, but God. So chapter 92, Shi Lian's like, what do I do? And I like how everyone in the festival thinks that it's a mistake or fraud. They don't think that it's right? And the Windmaster's like, well, obviously it can't be fraud or a fake because these are heavenly lanterns. They're not just something you can forge. How do they get up to the heavens if they're not the real deal? Like, the Windmaster's like, let's think logically about this. And they ask where the Thousand Lights Temple is, and Shi Lian's like, I don't know. My favorite part is that Shi Lian's like, it's just a game. Why is everybody getting so bent out of shape about it, right? He just thinks it's a game, but to several people, they do not think it's a game, and they take it very seriously. And then Pei Ming, that salty wench, he says, I did say the Crimson Rainsop Flower didn't kidnap His Highness out of ill intent, but no one believed me. Now will you all believe me? He's like, oh, you thought you knew it all, didn't you? I just love that Pei Ming is like, can I be any saltier of a wench? Like, I love that Pei Ming, he is suspicious of Shi Lian and Hua Cheng. I swear if he turns out to be homophobic and is like, 2 men can be in a relationship, I'm going to be like, Ling Wen's never going to get with you. So I'm like, leave Shi Lian alone. Like, I'm like, don't be doing that, Pei Ming. Don't be going there, right? But yeah, if it was Hua Cheng, it would not be impossible for him to do something like that. And so then Shi Lian's kind of like, is there anything between us? Why would he do that? Why? Because Shi Lian doesn't know that it's little Hua. He has no clue why Hua Cheng would do all these things for him, because he's not asked, and Hua Cheng and them haven't had that conversation. So it's like, why would we do this? But then Junwoo doing the slow clap. The slow clap being like, congratulations, Shonda. I don't know what to think of that, to be honest, because a part of me is like, does Junwoo suspect Hua Cheng like the others do? And then what were his thoughts of Long Ying? Because, yeah, like in the last few chapters, the Windmaster made a note saying that Junwoo has met Long Ying. Let Shi Lian leave with him so he doesn't think he's a problem. My question is, it's so interesting, and obviously we'll find out as the story goes, but Junwoo, obviously, if he knew about the bandages, and he knows about the human face disease, he knows that Long Ying is a ghost that's a relic to that, that's connected to that. So you would think he would want to say something to Shi Lian because it's tied to Shi Lian's past that Shi Lian does not have fond memories of or good connections with. But he doesn't say anything. So what's up with that? And then if he suspects Hua Cheng, or he doesn't question how Shi Lian got the 3,000 lanterns, he doesn't question about Hua Cheng's relationship. It almost seems like as soon as Pei Ming brings it up, he changes the subject and ends the conversation to get it from getting out of hand. So I feel like since he's asked Shi Lian to investigate Hua Cheng before, he doesn't want to get any more stuff stirred up with Hua Cheng in this sense, right? He doesn't want to stir up any more business with him, lest something get out that shouldn't. So that's interesting. Junwoo is just very suspicious in this, not suspicious in this chapter, but he's very odd. Like him slow clapping. I mean, granted, it seems like a nice gesture, and Shi Lian takes it as such. He's like, okay, Junwoo's just trying to clean up the conversation. Good on you, Junwoo. Thanks for changing the subject. Like, that part's interesting, but his actions these last several chapters are curious. Curious is a better word than suspicious. I just don't know what to make of them, so I'm going to file it away. I'm going to pin that up there for now. We'll come back to it later. But yeah, so the festival starts to break up. Ming Yi's the only one still eating. I like that the Water Master and Pei Ming and Ling Wen are like going to the after party. They're like, you want to go to my hot tub and get a massage and like chill out, bro, and have some cocktails? What? And the Windmaster's like, the Windmaster says they have other plans with people, and we don't get to know what that is. I'm assuming it's nothing suspicious. I'm assuming it's just they're like going, it's like Love Actually when they're like Elton John calls and the Windmaster's like, I gotta go to a party. Like it's one of those scenarios. I don't know. The Windmaster said they had plans with people. And the Watermaster says, I hope it's not with anyone unsavory. So I do want to point that out, that the Watermaster seems concerned about who the Windmaster hangs out with. I'm like, does Shi Wudu think much of the Earthmaster or not? Does he know about Hua Cheng and that the Windmaster's been hanging around all of them and functioning them? Like, what's the deal? Still, lots of mystery surrounding this conversation, ever so slightly. But then, yeah. And so then, what's interesting here is that, again, Ling Wen slams Pei Ming, saying, is there anyone more unsavory than Pei Ming? And he's like, shut up. It's great. So Shi Lian goes to get Long Ying, and while he's on the way, he runs into Mu Qing and Feng Shen. Now, interestingly, Mu Qing does not look pleased anymore that he won. And Feng Shen was the opposite, telling him congratulations. Like Feng Shen isn't thinking two things about it. He's like, oh, you just look at all them lanterns he got. Congratulations, old buddy, old pal. Even though they're not maybe on like the best speaking terms, Feng Shen's nice about it. Mu Qing doesn't say anything. I feel like Mu Qing is like us and thinks it has something to do with Hua Cheng and is trying to figure out what the deal is, right? He's being rather tsundere. Mu Qing's being rather tsundere and not talking about it, and what do we do? But yeah. And so Shi Lian goes he's just like, oh, thanks. They just like nod and go on their way. So curious that we just get that tiny, all of these centuries ago, they had such history. Like Feng Shin, Mu Qing, and him were like thick as thieves, together forever. And the most we get out of them in this moment as he's leaving the palace is just like a thanks and a nod, and they leave. Like these guys should have a history. They should be off like hanging out together and telling stories and be having a good time. And here they're still so torn apart. And we as the audience now know the history behind it, and it's really, really sad. And so that moment there, I was like, oh. But Shi Lian's like, I got a kid to maintain. I got to take him back. And so he grabs Long Ying from the palace and heads back home. And then, oh my God. So, Qirong, Shi Lian, you piece of shit. That's like the first thing out of his mouth. I'm like, of course it is. Of course it is. I'm going to die. So Qirong is still in the dad. Qirong's still in the dad. And he's hanging upside down in the forest. Like, Shi Lian, do you realize what you're doing? Because Qirong, by Wu Sheng, hung him upside down in the forest. Same thing. Ugh. So yeah, of course Qirong's freaking out about it because it's like his source of trauma. And of course he's being ridiculous. And I like the idea. Shi Lian is very savage in this moment because not only does Shi Lian like put him in this position that brings up childhood trauma, but on top of that, Shi Lian also like chopped lumber and scavenged that area before and was bitten by mosquitoes. So he's like, Qirong will get bit by mosquitoes, but he'll live through it. I'm like, that's so savage, Shi Lian. That poor dad's body getting ravaged by mosquitoes. What are you doing? And Qirong saying, where's your snow white lotus heart? Why can't you pretend to be a sickeningly sweet, good person now? Yeah, that whole moment where Qirong's like, why can't you just pretend to be nice like you were before? And it's like, well, Shi Lian wasn't pretending, but you've just really ticked him off after 800 years, so. And again, I love the dynamic between Shi Lian and Qirong, that they're cousins, so they can be kind of crass to one another, right? And so yeah, you have Shi Lian gripping this bare-chested, cursed man that's just cursing at the top of his lungs, while two kids are following behind him, one in a bandage being quiet, one covered in bandages being deathly quiet, the other one crying and sobbing about his dad. And Shi Lian's like, what a freakish group. Yes, very much so. Very much so. So, I love that as they're walking up the hill, Qirong's like, someone, dear God, make this person fall to their death. And Shi Lian's like, you're a ghost. Why are you begging to the heavens? What's that going to do for you? Oh my God. I do love it though. I love that Shi Lian is like, are the mosquitoes reminding you of your humanity? I just love that, right? And so then as they're walking up the hill, he sees in the distance the blessings of lanterns. Which again, should have been foreshadowing that Hua Cheng was not far away. It should have been foreshadowing for us, the audience, that he was not far away. He was near the shrine this whole time. I'm just saying, it should have been a sign. Should have been a sign for us. And I just love that Shi Lian like watches them and he's like, thank you. Like Shi Lian, like that restoring his faith, right? And it was Hua Cheng. I'm convinced of it. I'm sure it was. And then I like Qirong's like, why the effing thanks? Like, they're not for you. Don't think highly of yourself. And Shi Lian's like, to have beauty exist in this world is in itself something to be grateful for. Like, he doesn't want to acknowledge that he knows they're for him. He doesn't want to give Qirong that satisfaction. So he just, says whatever. And he says there was beauty in his heart and he wasn't afraid of any killjoys. Borrowing the light of those lanterns from the distance, he continued forward. So what's so beautiful about this is that you had, back in the past, you had Hua Cheng getting life from Shi Lian. And now, all these years later, Shi Lian is getting life and light from Hua Cheng, and literally breath from him in a dream. So, so sweet. So damn sweet. And so then we get to chapter... I'm glad I decided to read chapters 93 and 94. I really think I could have read chapters 91 and 92 last week, but that would have been a long reaction, but this one's probably going to be long too. So I am glad I read these 2 chapters. I'm very frustrated that I had to stop at chapter 94, so I'm not going to lie. As I was getting Whiteboard Coon out, I was like, I may have to read ahead. I may have to end up reading ahead, and I'm sorry if I do. I apologize to you all ahead of time, but it may need to happen because I don't know if I can wait to find out what's happened after this kiss. So I'll tell everybody in the Discord if I do, but, and we can talk about it in the Discord, but, oh my gosh. I don't know if I can wait, but I went ahead and read chapters 93 and 94. Can't turn back now, right? So 2 days pass, and he runs into the problem that he doesn't have any food. And it's not concerning to Shilian because of the kids. He's like, the kids don't eat much, and I'm pretty peckish. It's the fact that Qirong's in this grown-ass man's body and is demanding all the food. Qirong is the problem. So, basically, I like that they leave Qirong in the shrine. I like that they just leave Qirong with Ryuyi in the shrine. They're like, just keep him there. And he takes the kids with him. And... and I was going to put Heavenly Realm / past and reality / present here because I realize I'm writing some things about the past and present. But we have back with Banyu, and I'm assuming it was Pei Jr., the idea of the street performer. The idea of street performer, and comparing that now with Yongling and Guzi. And also, if I'm remembering correctly, he was also a street performer around the time he met Lan Chanchu, correct? Maybe. I think that's right. I think he was a street performer at that same time too, right before he became the Goshi. I want to say so. But yeah, and I like that he tries to do, he gets all a traveling salesman. He's like, come on, come and see my famous tricks. And he tries to say, shattering boulders and plate spinning, and they're all like, that's old news. What else can you do? And Shilian's like, I don't know any new tricks. I like that Shilian's like, crud, 800 years have passed, and I don't know anything new to try. So now, there is a deity brought up, Zhu Yang, right? Zhu Yang is brought up. I don't remember them. Maybe we've not met Zhu Yang yet. But they're a deity in all this. I don't recall them. Zhu Yang. So, that's interesting. Don't tell me who that is, because I may go back and reread some parts before the next set, but I don't remember them. But I may ask the Discord if I've met Zhu Yang yet or not, or if there's somebody I just need to know the name of, but we'll find out about them later. I think that's probably the case. But yeah, so Shilian brings up the Puchi Shrine and the Crown Prince of Shanla, but nobody's heard of him before. Which again, points to the fact that Hua Cheng did the lamps because nobody in the area knows of Shilian, and the lanterns were let off in the area, so if nobody even knows of him or his shrine, how can that be the case? So, what do we do with that? But yeah, so at this point, Shilian offers up protection charms, saying, hey, I have protection charms for everybody, but they've all broken up. Nobody wants them. And so Shilian, he starts to go, and he knows that all the spectators start to throw away the charms soon after they walked away. That is one of my least favorite things because I spent a few years as a recruiter for a college, and I always had to hand out pamphlets to students. And one of the most rude things would be I'd give a lecture and hand out this pamphlet, and then as the kids were leaving the room, they'd just throw the pamphlet in the trash, and I'd be like, can you at least take it out in the hall and throw it away? Not in front of me, right? It felt so bad. I was just I took all this time to explain this pamphlet, and then they just tossed it in the trash. I'm like, can you at least wait till you're down the hall and do that so I can't see you throw it away? It was so rude, right? And so poor Shilian. What's curious about this moment is that he goes to pick up the charms, and then he looks up and sees Longying's black eyes, raven black eyes, peeking out from under the bandages, watching him intently. And he says, what's wrong? go over there and sit with Guzi. Just wait for me a bit. And Long Ying was quiet. So I'm curious. I'm very curious, right? If Long Ying, he's talking about the charms and everything. I just dropped that. He's talking about the charms, right? So the things with the charms, Long Ying. All right. We know that this ghost kid is from around the time of the human face disease years ago, to our knowledge. So when he saw Shi Lian picking up the charms, did he notice and remember who Shi Lian was and remembered him from 800 years ago? Is there something to do with that? I feel like there might be. I feel like there could be something to do with that. That maybe Long Ying remembered him and was like, oh, that's who you are. Like, I don't know. We don't get to find out because there's a quack doctor. And there's the most... I am convinced that the body horror MXTX had for us was done. Nope. And it's absolutely terrifying. So we have this fetus spirit. All right. The fetus spirit that not only invades this woman's mouth into her body, but devours her living child before taking over her body like a parasite. What the fudge? Why? Why? And I have theories about the fetus spirit, all right? Because the master of the home, the merchant, is really worried. He has multiple wives. Another wife's pregnant. And he's worried that her baby is going to be dying too. He says he's waited 40 years for a son. So he's not had kids in 40 years. And so he's asking for a child. And Shi Lian's like, okay, I'll help you try to figure out about the fetus spirit. But he says that she had a strange dream of a child playing and calling her mom. And halfway through the dream, she felt something kicking her belly and woke up. And she says that she told the man that it was the baby, but in fact, it was the spirit. So they then find out that the woman had aborted a child before and had been fighting with some of the other wives. So Shi Lian theorizes that the fetus spirit could maybe be the spirit of an aborted child, which is a terrifying concept that an aborted child would become a ghost and harbor lingering ill will towards the mom. That's kind of terrifying. But also it could be that it could be a curse from one of the other wives. Like they're trying to rule out all possibilities, right? So the question is it, they think it might be the unborn child at first that, became a ghost, but then they rule that out because the child spirit sings, and it's the same song that Shi Lian heard in the bridal sedan. Way back in volume 1. Coming back full circle again there, right? So way back in volume 1. Okay. We're going to touch base on that. So the merchant asked about his child, and Shi Lian's like, it's been devoured. They're going to do their best to try to capture the spirit and take it down so it doesn't hurt his other wives and their unborn children. And so Shi Lian has all these requests. He says, I don't need compensation, but I need, first, casual women's clothing, so that's loose, a lock of hair from the expecting mistress, and then he says he wants to sleep in the same room as the mistress so that he can be in the same realm as the spirit and go inception-wise into a dream to capture it. And then he says that he has 2 kids that need to be fed, and the guy's like, sure. And then he says, I want you to take this protection charm. Now, the protection charm. Shi Lian, should you be giving out protection charms? I'm like, Shi Lian has bad luck, right? And we've established Shi Lian has bad luck. Should we be giving protection charms? I feel like that would be doing the opposite, but who am I to question our Cinnamon Bun deity? Who am I to question, right? And so, for the second time, Shi Lian dons women's clothes and dresses up as a pregnant woman. Again, I feel like if MXTX wants to do an Omegaverse story, they really could. Because, and someone else was pointing out in Modao Zushi, there's an Omegaverse aspect with Wei Wuxian, and I was like, oh, that's right. I'd forgot about that. But yeah, the whole thing about Shi Lian being worried that the spirit might try to go inside of him, and even though there's no baby there, he's like, I don't want that thing inside of me like that. Could mess up some stuff. It's interesting. I definitely got the Omegaverse vibes from this part of the chapter, but I was like, okay. I'm with Shi Lian, though. Even if you weren't pregnant with a kid, the idea the spirit would go inside of you, not a fan. So I don't blame him for not wanting that spirit inside of him. But yeah, so Shi Lian then has a dream. Like, from this point on, the moment he goes in the bedchamber and falls asleep, from this moment on, the rest of the chapter is a dream. And that, sometimes I forget that. And so I forgot that it was a dream. So if I go to read the next set of chapters, I'm going to need to make sure that it is in fact a dream, right? Because I was honestly forgetting about it at this point in the story. I was like, wait, which part's a dream? Is this reality? Is it not real? No, it's all a dream from this point on. So there are some things that are a little bit creepy, and that he has function with him. So function's a sacred sword. So it's with him even in dreams. Good to know. He wakes up in a pool of blood that he assumes is from the miscarriage, which is terrifying. And he can't keep the pillow in his robes. But he says that he's like this. What does he say here? He says that this little embellishment, it filled the air with a fragrant enticement. So it must be a restaurant or a place of entertainment. Okay. And said in comparison to the style of architecture, the style was quite old, very much like a building from hundreds of years ago, but he couldn't tell where. This wasn't likely to be the haunting of the fetus spirit aborted by the wealthy merchant, because when evil spirits create illusions, they could use only what they know. It was a centuries-old establishment, could only come from evil spirits equally as they old. Okay. And so after walked around, he returned to the chamber where he had first laid down. Okay. And so he goes back to where he originally started, right? And so he pulls out the drawers. And what's interesting here is that, okay, we have that it's an old establishment that is hundreds of years old where they're at, like setting-wise. So it's not anybody in the current time period. This fetus spirit is from a while back. It's a pretty old ghost, right? And then we also get the idea that there was this pool of blood. So the child was miscarried or died young. All right. And then we have the bedchamber where each of the dolls and items are new, meaning the mother of the child was full of love and affection. So the mom that the child is craving was full of love and affection. Okay. So and that's why the ghost wants to go back to the mom, right? And so then he finds a protection charm. A protection charm from 800 years ago. Which is rather curious, right? So, and he says that this was one that had been from 800 years ago at the peak prominence that everyone in the country had owned. That was from Shanla. So, so what the hell? What's the deal? What's up with this? What is this? He's like, could the laney odor of this establishment been his worshiper? And then he hears the word sniggles is just like the creepiest word, like tee sniggles. I never want to hear the word or read the word sniggles ever again. That's the creepiest thing. No, thank you. And then we hear the whole thing about the bridal sedan. But we don't know. And so there's some weird stuff about this whole point, right? So we know that only Shi Lian has heard the child's voice in the past, right? Only Shi Lian has heard it. Now, I think that it's rather important because only Shi Lian has heard it when the sound was happening, because Nan Yang and Fu Yao never heard it. So I've got a couple theories on this. I don't think any of them are correct. I honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I think the fetus spirit is something totally original that we've not encountered yet, that we have no prior connection to. So I'm like 25% certain that that's the case, that it's mainly this new spirit that we've never heard of before, but has had connections with Shi Qingxuan since volume 1 somehow, that's from around the time of Shanla and has connections to all that somehow. But other than that, we don't know. That's theory number 1. So theory number 1 is it is new. We have no clue what it is. Theory 2 I was thinking of is it connected to Long Ying's son? I thought that the black smoke, the idea that it like purposely goes in your body, that it like keeps wanting a parent involved. I'm like, did Long Ying's son, did it call out for its mom and was dying and Long Ying took it away and then it died? Were his parents, but Long Ying said he didn't remember and didn't know what Shi Qingxuan's palace was, so would they have been worshippers? Probably not. I don't know about that. And then the other thing that I thought was, is this damn fetus spirit connected to Bai Wusheng? Is it? Or is it connected to Bai Wusheng or Qirong? Is it? The only reason I say Qirong is because of the protection charm and that it's from around the same time as Shi Qingxuan. But with Bai Wusheng, there's a moment where they said that the baby spirit like giggled, but it sounded like an adult man's voice, which is the creepiest thing. And so I was like, well, is this whole spirit like using body horror and eating fetuses of other women? I'm like, that sounds like a Bai Wusheng thing. It just sounds like something it would do. And then it like sees Shi Qingxuan and it's creepy. Like, he says it like, and the fact that he says it was palish white and spewed something out of its mouth before scrambling away into the darkness. I'm like, I'm just picturing like a cockroach just going and being like, no, absolutely not. No, sir. Nope. Like, yeah, I don't like the idea. And the fact that Shi Qingxuan said this little ghost wanted to devour his child the same way as a pregnant woman, not at all. So it keeps calling for mom. And Shi Qingxuan, he deduces the lady of this chamber must have miscarried. Her unborn child already had a shape and retained a little bit of its consciousness. It became a fetus spirit and wanted to return to its mother's belly, but knocked on the door of the madame of that wealthy merchant instead. Okay, so yeah, so it's probably not Long Ying's son. Probably not that. It's probably something new, but it just gives me that Bai Wusheng vibe. I don't know. So it's probably something new. We just don't know what it's connected to. It may be connected to a character we already know about, but we just don't have any context for it. We don't know. But I don't know. I don't like the idea of this fetus spirit. It's quite creepy. So yeah. So he takes Feng Xin and he tries to like battle the baby while not talking and finally like jabs the baby. But then Shi Qingxuan like steps on a needle and like keeps running with like this needle going up his heel. Ugh. Like I need Shi Qingxuan to get that taken care of in the next set of chapters because that's just, I'm a little bit phobic to needles. So the idea of something like in my foot being jammed up there, no thank you. That sounds absolutely painful. And the worst part is Shi Qingxuan's like, well, I'm used to pain. I'm like, I'm glad Hua Cheng is here now, right? Just, ugh. And so he opens up the window to the mansion and notices that he says that on the outside, it's not like a street. There's not pedestrians. There's not anything. It's a giant lake, a deep bottomless lake outside the window. And on the other side of the lake, there's a house. And in the house sat Long Ying and Guzi eating at the table. And above them was this thick black smoke. So Shi Qingxuan, he realizes that although this was just a child spirit's illusion, he didn't know whether Long Ying or Guzi were really pulled in. If any harm happened to them over here, it would affect their real bodies. So he's worried that like, as he's been possessed in this dream, that like this inception has led over to Guzi and Long Ying. And he's like, I don't want to chance it. He's like, I don't want them to get possessed. And on the off chance that it really is not just a dream, this is happening to them in real life, he's like, I'd never be able to live with myself. So he shouts, close your mouth and run. and then the black smoke like instantly attacks him, right? And it gets inside of him, but she chews up he takes the protection charm and chews it up, and then the smoke like comes out of his mouth. And so he tries to, as he's choking, think of a way to counter it. But even as he puked out the black smoke, it tries to get at him again. And so he jumps out the window to escape and lands in the river. So we know that ghosts and deities can travel through people's dreams, right? So Hua Cheng appearing and kissing Shi Lian is not just Shi Lian's subconscious at work. That's actually Hua Cheng's subconscious invading the dream, right? Because Hua Cheng has said that he went into the dreams of some of the other god's followers and had this averse reaction happen when he was fighting them. So we know Hua Cheng can travel through dreams, right? So he's come here in this dream to save Shi Lian. Oh my God. And Shi Lian jumping in the water, he thinks that he'll have to open up his mouth when he goes to the surface, right? And so he's like, well, if I swallow the child spirit, then I'll just take my sword and like a sword swallower, I'll swallow it and then we'll kill the spirit inside of me. And I'm like, Shi Lian, again, taking the route where he does self-harm. Shi Lian's like, well, I may have to swallow my own sword, but I'll at least kill the spirit and nobody else will get harmed. It's like, Shi Lian. And then that's when Hua Cheng jumps in the water. And like that whole image of just like Hua Cheng sinking into the water and like wrapping his arms around Shi Lian and like lifting his chin to kiss him. We better get a picture of this in this book. Next set of chapters, I better get something. Oh my God. Yeah, so this all makes sense now. This all makes sense. This makes sense. Although, if you had told me the child spirit from volume 1 was making a comeback in this volume, I would have said you're crazy. But you're not. Here we are. Oh my God. I'm just floored. I'm just amazed that it took us 3 volumes and it's not even in real life. It's in a dream. And in a dream, Shi Lian is kissing Hua Cheng. And this is 3 volumes later. So that's stuff on the 4th volume on that cover. Am I right? That's going to be reality. Am I right? I hope. But yeah, but these chapters, they were amazing. These chapters were amazing. And I have so many theories. Again, I'm going to add questions to my questionnaire list. And so when we get done with volume 3, I'll be able to go back to that question list and be like, okay, here's my questions, things I have so far that have not been answered yet. What are we going to answer going into volume 4? I think I want to do that so that I have, starting each new volume, a list of questions or unanswered threads that I want to know more about. I feel like those are things that I want to keep track of as we go through the series. But, oh my God. I can't believe we're here, y'all. Our first bit of romance. Just in time for the month of Valentine's Day. Now, Valentine's Day is in a good old 2 weeks, so better be some romance MXTX for Valentine's Day. Counting on you. So, these chapters were amazing. I have lots of things to think about, lots of questions, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to wait to read the next chapter set. The next chapter set is chapters 95 through 97, and I think I'm just going to stick to those 3, and because it's 305 to 332, which is a nice chunk, because the next chunk after that's pretty big as well. So, but yeah, we'll see. So, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I hope you like this reaction discussion. I feel like it was all over the place, but my mind is as well. So, I'm probably going to go reread these chapters now and have another cup of coffee, so, because I'm out of wine. So, I'll see you all next week with chapters 95 through 97 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye.